Mdaka mama ijala laba fasilitsima itweshe sange sayoni ojini mdaka mama ojini mdaka mama ijala laba fasilitsima itweshe sange sayoni Siyabadwebula, siyababulala, kodwa bayasithanda, siyabacinezela. Ijala labafazi linzima, intwetshe zange sayiboni. Oh, yini mdaka mama, oh, yini mdaka mama, ijala labafazi linzima.
You can speak, Professor Magano, you're live.
Welcome, welcome, women of substance and men who are gathered here this afternoon in this auspicious event. Let me greet the outgoing Executive Director of UN Women, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, women leaders from all global spaces, young people who have joined this dialogue, the dignitaries. We have also the VC and Principal, Professor Pulele Nkabula from UNISA, the chairperson of South African Women in Dialogue, the founder of SAWID, Mezanele Mbeki, all other organizations across the globe that met this afternoon. A warm, good afternoon. To others, it's a warm, good morning. We are now going to have a devotion. Before that, we'll have a video playing a traditional song and have a devotion from multi-faith, the Muslim represented by Suraya Bibi Khan, and then from the Christian faith, Reverend Noktula Lala. Thank you.
The entirely merciful, the especially merciful. Sovereign of the day of recompense. It is you we worship, and you we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path. The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger or of those who are astray.
As we pray for this dialogue to take us forward with Mam Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, I pray, and I think we all pray, that we ask for help to find a cure in this COVID that we are in, help to bring about the wisdom. Mam Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, you took the UN to heights that one is unable to express in words. Your vision, the humbleness for persons all over the world where women were burdened with so much, and you have elevated women. So we pray that you continue to give us the light, to pass on the light for them, for us to have, and to let us also be good leaders with kindness, with gentleness. Historically, our engagement as women to champion for all the things that we need to keep the home fires burning was not really taken heed of. But through your intervention, through the work that you had done, and you have to say to yourself, you have achieved heights that you have taken us along as a leader. You didn't leave us behind. So thank you for this opportunity for me to say thank you. It's not always easy for grassroots to be able to be at a platform like this, a historical platform of engagement where the champion of women to be educated. I thank you and we pray for you to take us to different heights. Thank you.
Salem, Reverend Noktula Tladla.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible enough?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want to greet everyone and all protocol observed. I'm grateful for getting this opportunity today to do this devotion as we celebrate the lives of women. Mama Charlotte Matleke, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and many more other women who continue doing amazing work in their corner. So I want to start this devotion by reading a scripture from 2 Corinthians as we open with prayer. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9. I'm reading from the Message translation. It says, "We have been surrounded and battered by trouble, but we are not demoralized. We are not sure what to do, but we know that God knows what to do. We have been spiritually terrorized, but God has not left our side. We have been thrown down, but we have not broken." We are in such a difficult time with COVID, the third wave. There are so much unrest that we have seen. 32 schools have been burned down. So much has been happening. Issues around GBV that women are still suffering from, but we are not hopeless. We are not hopeless because we have been surrounded even by so many troubles, but we are not demoralized. We have strength, we have God who's always on our side. During all this that is happening, as I was reading the news 2 days ago about children from the age of 10 to 18, especially 10 to 14 years old, who are pregnant. And I was saddened looking at how our world have been like. We are faced with so much unrest and we still are standing up as women. We are not broken. I would like to open with the word of prayer as we close our eyes or do whatever that feels comfortable for you. God, who is called by so many names, we thank you for this time. We thank you for this opportunity that we gathered here today, all of us.
We come to you, God, because you are always faithful, and you said we should always call upon you in all things. In all things, you are present, God. You give us kindness, you, holy God. You give us your peace that is satisfying to all of us. We begin this work, our Holy Father. We call upon you that we may praise you all the time. We know that in all the plans for the day, in all that will be discussed for the day, in all the things that will be discussed today, you are with us. You give us wisdom, our dear God, and you renew our strength, you renew our power mentally so that all our thinking processes, we know that you are taking the lead. We thank you for your kindness. We thank you for all the work that the women are doing, that continue to do. to give us peace and praise in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We want to appreciate the moment of devotion because we don't control our lives from the Muslim faith and the Christian faith. We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Bibi Suraya Bibi Khan and Reverend Noktula Dladla. My name is Mwahabo Dainamahanu from the University of South Africa, UNISA Women's Forum. I'll be the program director. I have here the sign language interpreter, Natasha Parkins Malikos, and we also have the other interpretations in the following languages: English, Sesotho, Xitsonga, and isiZulu. Those who are connecting on Womanomics, you just need to choose the language of choice. If you want to remain on English, remain on the platform where you have logged in. If you want Sesotho, choose Sesotho or Xitsonga and isiZulu. The program has commenced and we have asked God Almighty to lead us. As we are continuing with our program, I just want us to know that here we are celebrating a giant. In celebrating of this giant, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, as UNISA, as SAWID, as UN Women, we will be welcomed first by none other than Professor Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, the first female principal at the University of South Africa. The VC principal and vice chancellor started her duties in January 2021. After 148 years of this august institution being led by males, Professor Mlambo-Ngcuka is a phenomenal woman, a trained feminist ethicist with a PhD in social ethics. And this phenomenal woman continues to partner with scholars in other universities, including visiting scholars in Botswana, Ghana, Vasteras, Sweden, Columbia University Center for African Studies, and Emmanuel College of the University of Toronto. And so far, her passion has been seen in promoting the academic project and the agenda of women at UNISA. I'm now going to call upon Professor Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka to give us an address. Thank you. Over to you, Prof. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, our first female giant. Over to you, Prof. Unmute.
Unmuted. Yes. Can I ask them to unmute me? Can you hear me now? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Mahanu, and for those warm welcome, and for those colleagues who led us into meditations, affirmations, and well wishes for the life today, especially in the context of COVID-19. I also want to appreciate your kind introductions around the roles that universities such as the University of South Africa plays and the transformations that are taking place. But today is that day where we should be celebrating giants that have gone before us, that have mentored us, that are leading the global arena in ensuring that women's talents, moral agency, leadership, and the transformation of the world towards peace, justice, economic and ecological flourishing takes place. So I appreciate the introduction. I'm particularly elated that SAWID, UNISA, and partners have decided on a theme towards peace, gender equality, collective legacies, and co-creative solutions of African women in the context of the shifts in the world. I want to first, before I even start, to acknowledge our keynote speaker this afternoon. It could be morning, wherever you are, but in the afternoon, the Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka, UN Executive Director and UN Under-Secretary General, who is our keynote this afternoon and who has done a great inspirational work at the UN, but also in our country as the first deputy president of our country. I also wish to welcome and acknowledge the presence of the founder of SAWID, Mezanele Mbeki, the director of the Mentorship, the chairperson of the South African Women Dialogue Trust, Ms. N. Githuku Shongwe, country representative of the UN Women South Africa and Multi-Country Office, colleagues at UNISA and all over the world who have come this afternoon to commemorate and to listen to the wise wisdom of this great giant, a sister, a mentor, somebody that we mostly look up to for her leadership and her fearlessness in treading to go even where lions fear to tread, in order to change the world for the better and to ensure that it's a habitable world that we constantly keep towards ensuring that it's a habitable world for women, for girls, for trans women, but also for humanity in general. Distinguished guests and gentlemen, I'm sorry. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to the 5th UNISA-SAWID-UN Women Dialogue. It is particularly poignant edition of SAWID, as it is an occasion to recognize, to celebrate, to commemorate, and to draw insights from the tenure of Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka as the Executive Director and Under-Secretary of the UN Women. Her work over the 2 terms in this role has been phenomenal, impactful, transformative, and inspiring all to not only women, but to all who wish to co-construct legacies of constructive present, but also the future. For us, her highlight has not just been the calm infusion of her soft but firm leadership role that ensures that we're all held accountable to making a peaceful world. In the 2 decades that she has been central to the United Nations, her work has highlighted the central place of gender equality, gender justice in the economy, in the ecology, including in its relatedness to climatic changes that the world is contending with in the present. She did not only focus on these matters, she also ensured that women's voices, participation, their rights, and their talents are acknowledged by ensuring that she embraced examples of reminding us that gender equality is a non-negotiable and something that state parties, societies, communities in the continent of Africa, in South Africa, in the global arena, which ought to be asserted at all times. Not only did she do so, she ensured that the agitation for the dignity, especially of gender non-conforming individuals, is not undermined by ensuring that she creates platforms alongside with multiplicities of communities to elevate the voices. And we expected and knew that she would outdo herself precisely because as the first deputy president in the country, she had asserted the imperative of education, including education for girls and for the underprivileged, reminding societies never only to prioritize education for those at the center in the urban areas or who are economically privileged. She centered the imperative for basic and tertiary educations in the rural communities, the townships, which in many instances in colonial and apartheid context had never prioritized the education of girls and those on the underside. And for me, ladies and gentlemen, as UNISA, we are proud that the He for She campaign that she projected and agitated and ensured that found expression and resonance, not only in New York, but in South Africa, Kerala, and everywhere else, was quite important to leverage the power of solidarity to drive movement for gender equality. I found this campaign both inspiring and educational, and I do believe that as a university, but also as multiplicities of women and our communities, we should tend to it as we drive the idea of equality in our own environments, including in the academy. I do believe we should tend to it as we think around also great musical giants, such as Miriam Makeba, who incidentally was an alumni of UNISA and an early example of what global solidarity meant in her expression, in her music, in her song, and in her agitation. In this work that the United Nations Executive Secretary, our former Deputy President, the UN Secretary, Mlambo-Ngcuka, has led, is quite important for us because it brings in common her work and resonance with Miriam, as I've already articulated. But it also reminds us of the fact that we have voices that we are discovering, that we should ensure that they benefit today's generation and the next generation, because she did not only pick up the baton, but she ensured that she creates through her mentorship of multiplicities of young women in the global arena, that she mentors them. We know that she has also, like others, been inspired by Miriam Makeba, Mezanele Mbeki, Charlotte Maxeke, Sophie De Bruyn, Angela Davis, Winnie Mandela, Wangari Maathai, and many others who have been central to the search for justice and equality and peace in our world. I would like to conclude my thoughts by saying we should not underestimate the challenge of transforming the media and historical narratives around gender in our time, drawing from her own experience. We should pause and consider why so many of the heroes we celebrate as Africans are generally male. It is fitting that we should celebrate the likes of the former President Nkrumah Nyerere Mandela, but we should also lift up people like Me Phumzile. It is also important for us to think of the stories of prominent, but also of the quiet, silent women who are in solidarity with the efforts for change in our world. People and both men like Me Emma Mashinene, Ellen Kuzwayo, Violet Matlow, Grace Masuku, Melilian Goy, and others. We should celebrate them because it is important, especially in historical contexts where patriarchal notions tend to trump the dignity of women. Writers of books hold a special place in my heart and in my life, and in the work that we do as universities. It may seem obvious, but it is an invitation to the history of this august and strong sister woman leader should find a way that is expressed in our curriculum in universities, for the work that has been undertaken has not only been beneficial for us in South Africa. The new generation of women scholars have also contributed and learned from the experiences of our forebears. Writers like Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Koleka Putuma, Kopano Malebu, Sipudi Mohali, Sisonke Msimang, Rose Mutene, as well as Zuleika Patel, who I'm told is amongst us, are quite important because it's a demonstration that we drink from our own wells. We have mentors that help the world, and therefore we can change the world. I want to also state that in the context of a university, we would like that commemorative processes such as today's between UNISA, SAWID, UN Women should be integral to historicizing our knowledge systems, to ensuring that the voices of women are not just the frills that make institutions important, but become integral in the transformation of society. And I wish us all the best in the deliberation and commemoration of our quest for co-constructing a peaceful world with economic justice as a core pillar for the transformation, committed to eradicating gender-based violence, as well as including inclusive, transformative, dignified idea of women's rights as human rights. I'd like to thank you and really appreciate the journey that Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka has traversed, which has inspired many, including myself, to having the courage to raising our hands even in difficult times. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam VC, Professor Linkabula. Thank you very much for that inspiring welcome. Now we are at home. We are now free. I'm going to give now the ground rules as follows. That as I give you a chance to speak, note your time. And when I switch on the video, it means your time is up, because we have many speakers and we need to manage our time accordingly. We are going to play a 5-minute video which outplays or outlines the life of this giant, this phenomenal woman, this incredible woman, the woman who changed the universe, the woman who is a pragmatist, the woman who is looking at action and not words only, the woman who's holding us accountable, that don't just put principles on paper and policies on paper, but let us practice, let us do, let us act. Can we have the video of...
Back to
shiri mwawati yani nkan ewa gbagbe wari ye nuona re man lo awa fe gboro e kan o fi wa sile di won la ni wa.
It is indeed a giant to be celebrated. As we start this Boma fire session, women sitting around the fire in the African context, when oral tradition is being passed on from one nation to another or from one generation to another, we know that we sit around the fire, narratives are told. I'm now going to have the following who will be sitting around the fire with this giant of a woman. It will be Miss N. Gitiuku Shongwe, the UN Women Multi-Country Representative. It will be Meto Gompumlwana, the Chair of South African Women in Dialogue. It will be Mbali Njomani, a social innovator. And this giant of a woman that will be giving a narrative, an account of 8 years, how she transformed the world, how she changed the laws, how she influenced the institution, is none other than Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who was sworn in this office on the 19th of August 2013. And she brought a wealth of experience as a leader, having started as a teacher and grown to higher levels, achieved a number of accolades until she was also a deputy president of the Republic of South Africa. Today, as we speak, it is exactly 8 years of celebrating her tenure as the UN Women Executive Director. We are bidding farewell to a giant. May I allow all these women to sit around the fire. Imagine the virtual fire, and we are going to listen to them. They have 25 minutes of engagement with this Sheryl. Over to you.
Thank you so much to our program director. Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Thank you to our Prof, Vice Chancellor of UNISA for incredible words. Thank you so much. Very happy to be the moderator for this session, inviting my sister, my big sister, Sis Togo Mpumlwana, who is the chairperson of SAWID, and Mbali Njomana, who is a social innovator who has driven the work of the Awetu Project, has worked with the young women of the African Leadership Academy, and has created the Prejudictionary. You'll tell us about it. But it's a very cool idea, so thank you so much. So Dr. Phumzile, our disruptor, our innovator, our torchbearer, so many different words to describe you. And unfortunately, we couldn't hear all the videos, but really a force for change is one of the words that comes to mind as everyone described you. And so, Dr. Phumzile, we will have a fireside chat conversation with you. A couple of questions that we will address to you from Mam Togo. You know, this is passing the baton on from our elders to our young ones. And we will get a few questions from the floor. We hope we will have time. We know you have a hard stop at 3:15, so we will make sure that we are done by then. But let me start by welcoming you and inviting you. We are celebrating you from across the partnership of UNISA, SAWID, and UN Women. Our fifth celebration here of our partnership. Let me start by you, Sis Togo. What is the question that you would like to pose for Sis Phumzile today?
Thank you very much, Program Director. Halala Phumzile, halala. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will start already with my question. That the book that the Vice Chancellor is already talking about, the book that is going to be written, your 8th year of that book at the UN Women. So tell us what exactly, in your view, made it possible for you to do the work that you did as a result of the women's movement behind you. Give us some of your reflections on how women's movement across the world, but also in South Africa, what we have done and what other women's movements in other parts of the world have done to support you, and what have you achieved as a result of that? Just your open reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Togo, and good afternoon to everybody in South Africa. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be received back at home. I am looking forward to coming back home. The women of the world in the last few years, let me say, you know, from the time we left Beijing, which is now 26 years ago, have worked very hard to sustain the agenda for women. If it was not for women in civil society, the agenda would have been in big trouble. Because even though we have donor support, but women get less than 1% of the global development assistance. Now, if you imagine that women are the people with most of the problems we are trying to address in society, they are the ones who are discriminated against in their own countries. And to have this limited contribution to the women's agenda leaves the women to be the fighters for women's agenda. So for me, it's UN Women, being one women's organization and institution within the United Nations that did not enjoy a lot of I mean, we were supported by donors, but we just never reached the level that you'd expect us to reach. If it was not for women in civil society, I don't know what our lives would have been. Women were there as supporters in policy making. They were there in program development, but very important in advocacy. There isn't a country where women have set back. They have been the ones that I have worked with to advocate on gender-based violence, from fighting the policies like marry your rapist, to the women who were fighting against laws in their countries that deny them their rights to own property and land. And it has been the women who were there with me for us to engage governments with allocation of resources, leading to fighting for gender responsive budgeting, including in South Africa. So really, when I look back, this journey would have been impossible without women. And they did not have a lot. They did not have resources. Their own organizations were struggling, but they were there all the time and every time when I needed them. So I am eternally grateful to them.
Thank you. I will follow up now with asking you to give some advice. You are coming back home now. We hope we didn't let you down as South African Women's Movement. We hope we didn't let you down, but we are very glad you are coming home now to push it more now. If you were to steal advice from where you are, what would you say we can learn from women across the world? What can we do better as generation equality?
I mean, generation equality looks at multilateralism as an agenda that is for all. It is not an agenda of member states. The UN Charter does not say we the member states, it says we the people. Mm-hmm. And you are the people that are referred to. We therefore look at generation equality as a platform through which you could attract a variety of stakeholders. We need, as women in South Africa and everywhere else in the world, to reach out to the people who are not like us, who do not support us, who are obstructionists in our agenda. We cannot continue to be preaching to the choir. Most of the time, we are in engagements where we are talking to ourselves about ourselves. That is not taking the struggle forward, which is why he for she has been important for me, reaching out to men to address the issue of toxic masculinity, but making sure also that the resources that they controlled are made available to women. So my first prize is go out of your confined spaces and our groups that are like-minded. Let's reach out to the people who do not think like us. Because the reason why we continue to have a problem with patriarchy is that those people who represent patriarchy do not share our values. And ours is a task of change, of being change makers. We need to convince them. And I know it is exhausting.
Absolutely.
But it just has to be done. So don't stay within, go without.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much for your response. Can I please invite questions? If there are people who have questions, please pose your questions, whether on YouTube, on the Womanomics platform, or right here on Zoom. Please pose any questions that you have to Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka as I invite Mbali to ask her question. Mbali, Dr. Phumzile loves this, your kind, you know, young woman, an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, a lawyer, an innovator in technology, using all kinds of interesting words. I look at the different projects you've set up, diversity with a T, prejudictionary. I mean, let's go, Mbali. What are your questions for her? Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. I just want to greet everyone in attendance, and to my three mothers on the panel, it's such an honor to be amongst you. Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, to you specifically, I just want to say Ndiyabulela Mama for being such an inspiration to young women like myself. to become the revolution and the breakthrough that we've been waiting for. I know that I am where I am today, and I have what I have because I stand on the shoulders of giants like yourself. And I just want to thank you so much for that. So just to contextualize my first question, as Gamman mentioned, I've created a tool called Prejudictionary, and it's the world's first dictionary of prejudice. I'm always proud to say that because I think we need more innovation from women on the continent. And it's designed to help us and to help future generations to unlearn stereotypes and prejudice in a new and consolidated way. So the idea is that if you want to unlearn a stereotype or a prejudiced idea, so say an idea like women are too emotional, you can look it up in this dictionary and it will tell you what it means, why it's problematic, and also how it's used. And so my vision for it is ultimately to become a kind of Wikipedia of prejudice. And so in the spirit of that, my first question for you is, during your 8-year tenure, what are your proudest achievements in breaking gender stereotypes and prejudices in a world that is still held back by patriarchy everywhere?
Thank you. And congratulations, Mbali. That's quite innovative. So I look forward to see your publication or whatever it is. It sounds quite exciting. You know, when we were reviewing the implementation of the Beijing Declaration around the world, one thing that was very clear was that the countries that made least progress were countries where norms were much stronger than laws, where norms continue to define the way the society functions. And that is all around prejudice, stereotypes that pull women back. On one hand, we in the last 10 years at UN Women have been very focused on changing laws because clearly there are thousands of laws that discriminate against women in all countries of the world. And in many countries, the changes have been happening. There has been law reforms. We participated in the many law reforms. Just in the last 2 years, we changed 700 laws around the world. But guess what? When you have changed the laws, you restore the rights of the women, which means that the women have got a possibility of taking the issue to court if it arises. But it does not remove the cultural practices that fertilize the injustice that happens. And that is where the stereotypes are a problem. And in order to do that, you have to go to those who are the custodians of the traditions, norms, etc., which is why we've therefore worked a lot with men. We've worked a lot with traditional leaders. We work a lot with religious leaders and with media, because media perpetuate stereotypes. One of the very direct way of addressing this has been with the advertisers and marketers around the world, because they put up adverts that position men in a particular way and tend not on just to discriminate against women in the way women are projected, but also discriminate against men. Men, for instance, has to be a breadwinner. A woman has to be a childminder, etc. So we have engaged with these companies, the biggest advertiser in the world, Unilever, in Procter & Gamble, Google, to say you have to change the way you advertise. And we are beginning to see those changes now. They themselves have now adopted an unstereotype way of advertising, which is why they have formed the Unstereotype Alliance. And we appointed ourselves as their ombuds so that we can make sure that they stay focused on it. But at a grassroots level, working with boys and girls is important, because the stereotype starts when children are very young. And if you do not intervene at an early age and you allow the stereotypes to settle in, reversing them when they are older is even more difficult. So I'm afraid this is the work that we have to do across generations, because they are all advancing these stereotype images in different spaces. They are not in different, the young people and the older people are not in the same spaces, and you have to meet them where they are in the spaces that they dominate.
Shuri, I mean, that's so much insight. I'm so grateful, and you're absolutely right. It's one thing to focus on policy interventions, but if we don't find more effective ways to change hearts and minds and to partner with culture to change hearts and minds, then all of the policy interventions in the world and the legislation is just not going to work, and it's not going to be effective, because at the heart of policies are human beings. So thank you so much for that. My second question for you is around mentorship, which is something I've really struggled with on my journey. It sometimes feels like all of the people I look up to are unavailable or inaccessible in some way. It almost feels like they live on an island that isn't even on the map. And it's been incredibly difficult for me. And so that's why I'm grateful for this platform, to be able to sit here with, three mothers of the movement for gender disruption and equality is a mentorship opportunity for me. And so I'd like to ask you, following the launch of Generation Equality, what would be your advice to South Africans on how best to ensure that intergenerational dialogue, skills transfer, and mentorship are beyond tokenism?
I think Togo would agree with me that we stress a lot about this issue, about the young women that we would like to nurture, and how busy we otherwise tend to be and not have enough time to do that. For one, I think it's important to use digital platforms for that. Because realistically, we are not likely to be everywhere we should be. But secondly, it is important to do master classes where we pick up on the topics and the issues that concern young women, and topics that concern us, because we also want you to mentor us. There's so much more that you know about issues that are happening right now in the spaces you are in where we are not. So the interaction is not one way, it goes two ways. We hear from you, you hear from us. In terms of strengthening you for programs that you care about and tackling the issues that concern you, it is very important that we co-create. That's the making of the solution is something that we do together. One of the best successes of Generation Equality has been the co-creation, that all of the steps that we took in Generation Equality, we were together with young people. There's always the danger of tokenism, as you say, and young people in Generation Equality were reminding us every minute that they are watching us, that we are genuine about what we are doing. But, you know, in those dialogues and exchanges, some of them quite rough, that is where the learning happens. Then they will guide you about what it is that they need. I feel like I don't know everything about what should be done and how to do it when it comes to supporting and making sure that young people are engaged fully. But if we are together and you don't allow me to get away with tokenizing you, that's where the learning will take. And you will then grow also in that process. So, you know, bring it on.
Okay. I think it'd be so great to create a mentorship economy almost, because time is such a valuable currency where, you know, those who are further along can commit even 60 minutes on Zoom a month. Just to mentor somebody younger and have that be a mutual creation, a co-creation, like you're saying, and to use virtual platforms to be more intentional about that, I think would be incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for all of that wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me just say, I think all of us should think about the things we feel we do best, we know best. It's not things we learned at school. Absolutely. And all of us in this screen, as I can see you, we are in careers and doing things we did not train to do. You learn by observing, you learn by following, and you then discover some of your own talents that you have that are hidden even for you. So it's important to understand that mentorship allows you, as the person who is mentoring, to show to the people you are mentoring the many things they will not learn at schools, the things you also did not learn at school. And you must never get tired to ask, because it's only when you ask that you are able to dig deeper and to find the answers that you are looking for. And the people who are supposed to be role models to you, sometimes they don't even know that they're being role models at the time. But hearing from asking, then they recognize that what they're doing is important, and they will do more of that because they will recognize that it provides help. To those of my age group with sore knees and sore backs and so on, one thing that we must learn is just that you lift as you climb, because it's actually quite lonely at the top. Going up alone is never a good idea. Not only does it leave you without people to reflect with, it actually leave you quite vulnerable, because you cannot have all the ideas. You'd always need other people to support you, and they don't have to be older than you. They can be much younger than you, but they can provide some of the critical answers you are looking for.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So Sawid, there we go. Sawid Masterclass on mentorship will be our next big one in this partnership. Thank you for a wonderful conversation. Unfortunately, our time has run out. I am so sorry about that. I think Dr. Phumzile has another engagement, so we're going to have to move it to the latter part of this session. I had several questions, and one of the big questions that's coming to you, Phumzile, is about what some of your priorities are when you come back home. Now, I know that's not a quick answer, so I'm going to just leave it with you so that when you have your next engagement or when you prepare to come home, you'll be able to answer that question. But that was a burning question that had come through, and others who are asking questions, but unfortunately we don't have the time. So I'm going to hand back over and just say from me, I have had the singular honor and privilege to serve under you as your representative in South Africa. It really has been, and I feel like I am kind of really special to have been able to play that role. And thank you so much for that amazing time that we've been able to hold hands together during this time. But I'm now going to hand over to Sis Togo, who's going to do, you know, your farewell message from our family at UNISA-SAWID and UN Women. Thank you so much for the conversation. Over to you, Sis Togo.
Thank you very much again. Halala. Yes, I am going to just say something very short to you, Phumzile, because I guess you've got so many of these farewells, but we have to say this to you, our dear sister. The heading is your footprints that you have traveled. Our dear Phumzile, or Dr. Phumzile, everyone would call you that in the world. Or Mamlambo, or Mangcobo's daughter to some, or Mama Galuyolo, or Nkosikazi Katata Galuyolo. Yesterday, you transitioned from performing your task at the UN Women. Unbelievable. Whilst we women of South Africa had no doubt about your ability to succeed in your task, you exceeded our expectation. The world knows us, South Africans, now because it knows you. We are grateful. 8 years ago, seems like yesterday, when you left for the UN, we, your sisters in Africa, celebrated you and sent you off at that hotel. I still remember where we were, with our positive prayers and positive energy. We were afraid, covertly afraid, that that monster UN would destroy our precious stone, Phumzile. We were anxious, but frankly, the time was perfect at that time, because the universe was calling you to use your tremendous energy, your passion, your creativity, your profound sense of justice for the greater good in the world, that is, women in their diversity. We did not see your calling, your higher calling, with our human eyes, but you saw it. The Almighty saw it. I must go down. The Almighty sent a man from Korea, a man called Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who articulated his mission as, I quote, to build a solid UN machinery to advocate for women's rights, gender equality. And he went down south to Africa to assemble his star team to change the world towards achieving justice. He said in his mission again, he wants to give the voice to the poorest and the most vulnerable people and advance peace, development, and human rights. So when he left, another man from Portugal, said, I want her in my team. And he said the same thing to this girl from Claremont in KZN. And this girl from Claremont said, I'm ready, send me. Nothing could stop her. Sisters and brothers, those who know her, some of us were chuckling. We said, they don't know Phumzile. They don't know. UN will never be the same. And of course, are we surprised? UN is not the same. She has done that wherever she went. Just one example of my knowledge of Phumzile was in Cape Town. When she arrived and she was working with indigenous bishops of indigenous churches, before we knew, they wanted to make her a bishop. That's how powerful she was. in an environment where women could not be bishop, wanted to make her a bishop. Another example, when she became a deputy president, before we knew, they were in buses going to Swaziland to look at women and trade, the women who were trading in the informal sector. DTI was never the same. So today, Phumzile, we are saying to you, you left UN and created generation equality. And you said it is about moving from making promises to telling us what you are going to do with this situation for women. And that also has changed the world. So, Phumzile, my dear sister, we want to say to you today, 8 years on, we are proud. We can't fault you for being gifted. We are grateful, truly grateful. We are even grateful for disrupting, for making people like Ombali, to make life impossible for us old women, because we are a disruptor. I bet you the women of the people in Afghanistan, the Taliban, they don't know how changed their country is in Afghanistan. Those women will never be the same. So we knew it. We knew that you were going to do what you did. So in your last interview, you said to Sheryl, who always smiles when he talks to you, smiles like your son. He always smiles. You said to him when he asked you, so why are you leaving? You said, one has to go. That is Phumzile. Phumzile goes when she has to go because she gracefully leaves and she hands over to the next leader. So, Dombigamango, your mother is saying where she is, well done, good and faithful servant. My child, you have used your skills and you have not disappointed me. So on behalf of South Africa, we would like to thank the world for embracing you, for supporting you. And they took you in one piece and you come back in one piece. And we also know that we are going to still use you here at home. On behalf of SAWID, that you had to create at the time as a patron for young women, we say to you, slow down a bit. But we know you will try, but it is difficult. The seed you have germinated in your work will keep hope for 4 billion women of all generations in the world. We wanted to ululate in the streets, but we can only just say goodbye online and hope that when you physically come home, a few of us can be at the airport to say, welcome home. Well done. We love you. We love you. You have done exceptionally well. We are proud of you. Malibongwe.
Yeah, la la. Jessica, come on. Thank you, sister girl.
Hala, Phumzile Mlambo. Hala. Hala, Lambogoto. Hala, Phumzile Mlambo. Hala. Oh, you are the symbol of bravery, like Queen Nani of the Maroons. You are the symbol of cultural revolution, like Queen Nefertiti of the ancient Egypt. You are the symbol of immortality, like Queen of the world. You are the symbol of immortality, like the great Charlotte Maxeke, Rahima Musa, Anita Katalia, Lillian Goyi, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Sidi Allah, Nano Zala. Kade kaloku qhushalaza usiqinga likamva eliqaqambileyo amanqanaba gqithile iminqantsa wayiqabela ungaxeleshe ngasemva kwaphela yonke loo nto sisithi it's time for you to come home. It's time elililixa lokuba sixonxe sihlahle umhlahlandlela siwuhlahle siwuhlamahlongwane phezulu sixonxe ikamva eliqaqambileyo labafazi nabantwana elililixa sithi mazembele mhle mazemebela phonxileyo. You are the gold, you are the regional gold, you are the continental gold, you are the global gold. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, you are the gold. Sithi wuntu anendlebe nje kaloku madoda unatyala bantu kutyaka abafazi bale ndawo bonithakatha. Hayi
Thank you so much, Bishop. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I want to thank the panel. I want to say to Mom, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, we are very proud of you. You left a footprint in the universe. We just want to thank you and we honor you that where you went, you represented women of South Africa and women in the global space. We are going to have Mefratini to give us a healing poem. As you travel back home, you travel with the spirit that the Mbongi, Bishop Jessica gave to you, and Claudia Fratini will be pouring out. Over to you, Claudia Fratini. Unmute.
Thank you for the honor of delivering this healing poem as we send a giant coming back home. Continuous rays of refracted light pierce a veil of unknowing consciousness, waking from stillless sleep. Still, the jarring, jeering cacophony of restless, rumbling, repose, sound dominating those daunting rays reflected on a distant plane of stillness. Breathe, rising and falling, expanding, receding, the flux of life, a rhythmic ebb and flow of undaunting moments, memories, movement. Breathe. Curious rays of refracted light dance daringly close, the distant plane of stillness, the veil of unknowing consciousness, still waking, barely moved by ripples on that distant plane. Breathe. Rising and falling, expanding, receding, the flux of life, a rhythmic ebb and flow of memories, movements, moments projected on that veil of unknowing consciousness, the jarring, jeering cacophony of restless repose, repeating, relentless rememberings. Breathe. Courageous shafts of golden light, arrows held vertical in suspended animation. Breathe. Infinity. Breathe. Arrows descended, a frightful release of liquid energy. Breathe. The veil is lifted. Breathe. Consciousness. Breathe. Knowing. Breathe. Stillness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mefratini. Thank you for those words of healing, those words of therapy. Surely, to Mom, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo, you needed the words of healing from the 8 years of challenging systems, 8 years of disrupting the narrative that was oppressing women. You needed words of healing. You needed words that will massage your shoulders and neck as you travel back home. We need you being restored to come and heal South Africa and change the narrative in South Africa. And we are now waiting for you, Mom. From July, we have been crying. We are waiting for you. We are waiting for you with that disruptive narrative to come. As Mom Togo was outlining how you change spaces, we are looking forward to a change space or a giant that will be bringing a different story in South Africa. Thank you, Mom and Gituku Shongwe, Mom Togo Mpumlwana, Ausimbali. Thank you so much for that bomber fire conversation. We are getting now in another panel, which will be having 20 minutes. The moderator in the session will be Prof. Lula Mamakubela, a researcher, a professor, a leader in her own right, a feminist, Pan-African orientation scholar. We will also be having Dr. Padile Hohla, a former statistician general of South Africa, and also a prolific speaker and writer. We'll be having Dr. Luz Helena Herner, Executive Director of UWB Trust, who is having a PhD in international economics. We'll be having again a young lioness, Miss Shatadi Poshoko, the Secretary General of the SRC at the University of South Africa. Mam Prof. Lula Mamakubela, this is your session. You have 20 minutes. Take us through this panel where we are now going to change the space, especially as women, for us who are in higher education and in other sectors. Over to you, Mam Prof. Lula Mamakubela.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, my sisters. All protocol observed. This session focuses on the importance of why we should use science in everything that we do. The panelist that I'm with here is Professor Padile Hohla. That does not need any introduction. He will be followed by Dr. Luz Helena, coming from the WDB, as well as our young SRC leader. So in observing time, I would shoot on and just give a context, just a brief context of what this session is all about. As I said, not all organizations understand the importance and the value of science and why research matters. The UN Women, together with Gender Links, led by women in the stature of our outgoing Undersecretary, as we have engaged with her a few minutes ago, understood that, and they partnered with the South African Women in Dialogue to ensure that the study entitled Vulnerability and Indigent Assessment in South Africa, a Civil Society Emergency Response to COVID-19 is realized. And it is my privilege and honor to ask Professor Padile Hohla to just give us a brief background of what the study is all about, but also what are key
recommendation as we begin to unpack and look into the future of what this study should do in enhancing the lives of so many women and children in our country. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Professor Makwera. And I value this invitation as the only probably one of the 2 or 3 men in this audience. And I want to be this honorary woman amongst ourselves. And just by way of introducing myself, in the context of our Undersecretary General and former Deputy President, by the way, we were classmates at the University of Lesotho, and we attended economics together. So this is really interesting that on the day she leaves office, I am invited to come and address very profound issues around women. And just to pick on what she said about a lot of learning occurs at a very young age, and that grounds you and makes you a strategist in your own right. And because in that growing up, the things you learn may well be very unique to yourself. And once they are unique to yourself, it gives you an advantage in order to dealing with a number of other things. I was invited by the late Vuyo Mlambo-Ngcuka, may her soul rest in peace. It wasn't an invitation, it was an instruction to participate in the study. What a privilege I had to be in that presence of great women like Professor Makwera, with whom we had sleepless nights trying to complete the study on time on the instruction of the person who had then departed. The study in itself reveals very, very important systemic issues. Systemic in terms of just design thinking. The absence of design thinking is what kills us. And bringing into that space the attribute and the attribute of activism and ground truthing through the actions of women. So this study has been an eye-opener to me. While I was statistician general, I had been asked to try and provide data on women, and the constraints that we faced there, like money and so on, made us not to be as relevant as one would have liked. But this study, I think, pushes the bar in order to make it possible for women issues, including gender-sensitive budgeting, which has not been part of our budget in South Africa, or things that are policy relevant but do not take into account the unique circumstances that women have to contend with. Like if we think about Fees Must Fall, very little has been taken into account about the single mothers in South Africa and the things that they have to confront in terms of trying to get men to pay fees. And that context in terms of policy decision was not taken into account. And these are the things that are very difficult. So in terms of conscious of time, I have to move on to what the recommendations from the study are. I see my eyes are getting a little bit difficult for me now. One of the things, we come up with a number of recommendations, and we come with those recommendations in relation to institutions that have to take responsibility. The recommendations are, of course, about the production of relevant and appropriate knowledge for action and tuition. And I think in the report, there is a body of knowledge that has to go to the National School of Government, because our policymakers are insensitive to these things that concern women. And I think we should start at that level of civil service to take action on the things that are coming out of matters that are emerging out of the report. And then, of course, creation of predictable systems. Women have spoken in that report of SAWID about systems must be predictable. And in that respect, I think the national policy, National Planning Commission, which is now being, members are being appointed, there has to be interaction and discussion in that space, both at the National Planning Commission and the DPME, Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as Parliament. And then, of course, where we are in South Africa, we are regrettably not a very accountable society or an accountable government. If we were, we wouldn't be where we are. And a very pointed issue comes out of the study to create the systems of accountability. They are there, but they have to be implemented. And unless they are, unless the breath of women is put in those systems of activism, if that is not done, these systems will die, will be as cold as they are at the moment, and we will not see any accountability. Of course, sound policy making. Sound policy making, yes, can be, it's not something that is done in laboratories, in the smoke field and mirrors field buildings, but it is something that has to be done by women in practice. And in that respect, women has to be at the center of how government makes decisions. The other recommendation, of course, is one of leaving no one behind. And the study articulates that very, very well, including the one of making sure of that there is intergenerational, achieving intergenerational equity, so that we don't consume more than what we leave for generations to come. And this is articulated very, very clearly in the report of SAWID. And of course, we must secure a predictable lives for children. The prayer started off with saying a 10-year-old has been raped and is pregnant. Surely, surely that deserves spitting on the nation's face. It only attracts a spit on the nation's face. There is no excuse that such things happen in our own presence and the presence of women. And women are saying that we must predict, we must secure predictable lives and futures for the children, so that those kinds of things cannot happen. And then, of course, resilient economic and social systems. What we see in South Africa, particularly at the moment in the space of economic policy, the language, the structure, and everything is so masculine that it doesn't take into account matters that concern women. And therefore, things like the multiplier effect are related to economic formulas, when actually women are multipliers. They create out of everything. They multiply it several times. And those social multipliers, as well as economic multipliers, like an unaccounted for work of women, must be in the economics that we prefer, and economic policies. These all things are advocated for by the study. And of course, in this regard, women must be represented around the table when the Treasury makes certain decisions. Of course, the question of human settlements is yet another core area that challenges us. We've inherited the space economy of apartheid. We need to change that space. And it is women are at the center of that changing of that space of apartheid, because they are the biggest victims of that space. And in this regard, I'll say cultural economic geography is at the core of what the paper is saying and recommendations. And lastly, I think we have seen in SAWID that ordinary women have been made great. We have just seen one ordinary woman who has been great. And that's the product of SAWID. And Mema Mbeki, we thank you very much as the patron of SAWID, and all other women. We thank you very, very much in creating extraordinary. The last bit is that we believe that we have an ant in the furniture business. The report of SAWID must go and replace the seat that was occupied by the ant in the furniture business at the UN. Secondly, we have the Africa peer review mechanism. That report must serve there so that what it is happening in South Africa can multiply several times because women are multipliers. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. It is important to make everyone aware that this study has been, a persistent work that dear and beloved late sister Vuyo Mahlati that really initiated it. That took 17 years of her resilience working with SAWID and for SAWID, but for the women of this country. But also that it is very interesting that the study in itself was conducted by 17 researchers that include Prof as one of them, but and sadly so that one of our researchers, Dr. Ellen Carnegie, had to really go and follow Dr. Mahlati so soon. So we have lost two very significant women in the process. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the study in itself presents to us 17 key recommendations. And one of those recommendations are at a pragmatic level, at a level in which WDB comes in showcasing a case study that makes everyone aware that it is possible if we are really interested as a country, as a community, to change the plight of the vulnerable and the indigent in this country. Over to you, Dr. Lou Helena.
Thank you so much for this, and thank you for the honor of being in this forum, talking next to such giants and talking to the report on indigency for women. I believe the WDB has been honored in my person, and me personally, I am extremely humbled for being here. So threading on the last words of former Statistician General, we need to find models, systems. It needs to be systematic interventions to eradicate poverty, to create wealth, and especially to create a new system of economics that doesn't leave anyone behind and that is not completely patriarchal, requires interventions, but they're not interventions of the type of we come, we fix, we do. And that is one of the first realizations that has led to the Zenzele Development Trust model of intervention, which includes the asset-based community development model, which understands and harnesses the energy and the existing power of women living in poverty. So we are focused on family, on the implementation of the Family Development Program, synchronizing the model in the areas where there is more need, but also where we can find, and what we are really is the bridge between the resources that people are not reaching and the people who are very resilient and are already living under conditions that you need to be very resilient to live on. So Zenzele, roughly translated, and I here will take some indulgence from you, is Zulu for do it yourself. And what we do is shine a light into the resources that the people are entitled to receive, the resources that the people are part of their constitutional rights and that they are not receiving it, whether they come from the public or they come from the private sector. So our idea is to become an integrated development model, and the idea for this is that this model can be replicated by whoever wants to do it, be it government or be it another organization. And how we do it, we link and support the households towards self-reliance. And this is not something that we assess ourselves. This is something that the families assess themselves. And here is one thing, and I think it's important to mention it, and I'm gonna take a minute for it. We need to recover and unearth the agency of our women, and especially in interventions, because these are adults or adults to be who are intelligent, they are resilient, they are resourceful, they are somehow sustaining an unsustainable situation. So these are the people who know how to live in the worst conditions, and we are not to come and say, this is what you need to do. In fact, what we need to do mostly is to listen and hear what they think about their situation and what their strategies are, and then just to facilitate them with the resources that we have previously mapped. So we do this in a number of ways. And our idea is to first link the households to the resources, mobilize them, develop sustainable partnerships and networks, and then leave. But leave ensuring that the area and the people that have been going through our program are now fully empowered, and then they can continue to replicate. I loved the expression of Mr. Lejosla, women are replicators, and they are. And to replicate not only the program, but the strengths and the ability to find out what are the main issues. So this we do in a cycle of 3 years, and we ensure that afterwards there is like an ambassador of the program that remains in the areas. At the moment, we're sitting with in excess of 17,000 clients in KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Free State. And one of the key issues that we find, and that we have found in many of the forums where we participate, is food security, which is but one of our dimensions of work. So how is this, and how can this be a model that anyone can take and learn from us? So we first go and do the intervention. We go to create better connections, and in this, our networking power is their own networking power. So what we're really doing is showing the people that they do have power by facilitating the basket of services that they think they need to access and they are not accessing. And to do this while you are living in indigency is not easy. And I think one of the great values that we add is the psychosocial support, because for more economic theory that you throw at a model or a system, when the people have lost their agency, their voice, their self-esteem, and their belief in that they can improve their own life, then we incur in mental health issues, but also there is that psychosocial accompaniment that is necessary. And here is where I think the biggest value of our approach is. Then we acknowledge what there is and harness and capitalize on their indigenous skills, their indigenous community knowledge, and the things that they are doing already productively. And we do this in a number of dimensions, one of them being food security, but you cannot assure food security if there are not other things around to make sure it happens. So South Africa is a country that has abundance of food, perhaps excess of food, and at the same time, people are not accessing. So it's a country with abundance of food and hunger at the same time. And here is where we realize we need systems, we need that network, that comprehensive policy, but we also need to make sure that people receive all their services they need so that they can dedicate themselves to become a productive family, a productive woman, and that they are not attacked by the social ills that impede the growth, not only economic, but spiritual, mental, and physical of a healthy community. We do a lot of resource mobilizations without giving anything. So we don't give grants, we don't give parcels, we don't give the people anything that they can procure for themselves. We just show them how it is, and we build a lot of partnerships. This is another great shift in consciousness, I believe. We don't work for the individual or with the individual person. We realize that community and stakeholders and everybody needs to be involved, including in grassroots governance, so that the problems that so that they know that they are not alone in the problems they're experiencing, and also that they know their share of duty to solve them and to solve them together within the organizations. So these interventions include a caseload per development facilitator of 100 families per DF. And we work in the ward. Now we're working in the local and in the district municipalities. We do a baseline. So this is, as Professor Lulama was saying, it's a very scientific approach. We work on data, because what you cannot measure, you cannot evaluate. But the data that we use is not just random data. It's data that is observed, and then it's data that is subjective. So the family gets the chance and the opportunity to say, I think the problems that are most pressing for me to avoid, for us to remain in poverty are these. And then we create a plan together. So again, the topic of co-creation, the topic of collaboration, the topic of gestation is a more feminist approach into this. And then the interventions, which are planned and placed with the family, are followed up dutifully, weekly, every time for 2 years. And on the year 3, we start saying, okay, this is what you have achieved. This is where you still need to achieve some more. And these are the areas where we haven't. And we are going within the next 12 months. So let's try make sure that you can continue tackling these processes. In here, and I will go back to the food security issue, one of the matters that we have is that we have a lot of women farming. And this is important for one reason, and that is food security is in farming going forward. So we have women who are subsistence farming, and that guarantees us a good relationship with the land. And South Africa has a very hurt relationship with the land. So farming, either if it's subsistence, medium, or commercial, has to take into account sustainability, has to take into account that relationship that we need to work with the land. And then ideally, some of our clients are becoming commercial farmers who then are creating employment, wealth, multidimensional knowledge, and engaging in a value chain. So not everyone is fit for commercial farming, but food security and independence, as well as nutrition repletion, are one of the strategies that are going to assist us in graduating people from poverty. So exiting poverty and entering into an abundant mindset, but also an abundant management set is very important within the program. And we are actively encouraging our clients to engage in those activities so that they can have summarize.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Luz Helena. It is clear that the example of SAWID-Zenzele approach has proven its mettle as being close to United Nations and standards and norms, and it can be shared, you know, continent-wide. The seed that has been planted by Zenzele, the approach, it's really rich, and we hope that it will be nurtured throughout, not in our country, but in the continent as well. Okay, we will then quickly go to Shadadi, who would address the issue of one of the key recommendations that speaks to leaving no one behind. Over to you, Shadadi. Very briefly, my dear, we're running out of time. Thank you. Shadadi, can you unmute yourself?
We can't hear Shadadi.
Technicians, no. Can you help Shadadi to get audio going, please? Thank you. Whilst we are waiting for Shadadi to unmute and the technicians to assist her to unmute, we need to share that this is a very rich study that is available in 3 products, really. We have a high-level executive summary that those that would want to really read the study can read the executive summary, but the study in itself runs into over 200 pages, simply because it really deep into issues that speaks to food security, that also questions the whole social protection in our country, which is part of the challenge that women do have. But the key and critical part that Dr. Luz Helena was also touching on was to look into the entire delivery systems and social relief in the country. Can we check then if Shadadi is able to speak, because the role of the youth in ensuring that we address the persistence issues of poverty, of unemployment, are very critical in the whole discourse. Shadadi, are you able to come in now?
I think she will have to log off and then allow her mic to work, both mic and video. And then once she has done that, she would be able to speak. At the moment, it looks like she might have not permitted one of her gadgets for that. So she should log off and log in.
Yeah, the team is trying to call her, Prof. Lulama. It's probably the way she joined the session. So the team is trying to call her. We do have some questions that were posed. Perhaps we can have those while we try and get her back. If you look in the chat.
All right, thank you very much. We'll address the questions so long. We have a question here that asks, what would be the best strategy to reach out to the illiterate, rural and vulnerable women? For instance, in the Eastern Cape, in the last 2 weeks, several women have been killed. Prof, would you like, Prof. Paddy, would you like to attempt that question?
Thank you very much, Yes, the question of literacy is an important one, because if you don't know how to read and write, life can be,
beautiful. Here we go. You on.
Life can be very difficult when you are not able to read and write, especially now with the use of technology. But technological advancements have made it a little bit easier for people now to actually communicate. I mean, I'll take, for instance, the situation where I grew up in Lesotho, which is my home, where women are left at home by migrant husbands, and they have to make decisions, and the decision has to be made by letter, and the rain doesn't wait for the letter, deciding when to plow and when to plant. But now with this technology, you can call and do things much easier, and the technology itself now can even translate English to Zulu and so on and so on. So the use of technology in those circumstances really deal with the barriers of literacy. That doesn't say that people shouldn't go to school and advance themselves. The issue of violence, women being killed, femicide, and so on, even in the month of women, these things happen. Suggests that there are more systemic issues rather than declaring a month of women. It's addressing those systemic barriers to liberating women. That is what has to be done. And I think the study goes to the heart of those issues. What is important is that study has to be in the hands of power, and the power is with women, and advocacy so that politicians can better understand this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shakadi, we can give you a few seconds just to articulate the voice of the youth within the context of the discussions going on. Thank you. Over to you, Shakadi.
Thank you very much, Professor Makubela. Can you just confirm if I am audible now?
You are loud and clear. You may continue.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Phumzile Mlambo, Prof. Puleng Likambula, all the renowned women in this platform, the student leaders who have joined into this meeting, the men and women together with the students, greetings to you all. My name is Shadadi Poshoko, as I have been introduced, and I am so honored to be invited to this platform and to share a platform with all these renowned women who are part of the panel. It would be a blunder and a mistake, Prof, to speak of a prominent women affecting women as a teenage pregnancy without giving historical context. And the exactness and mechanism of the patriarchal indigenous or privation rubric in the social landscape are premised at the societal systems of power. Unquestionably, the structural design of South Africa remains economically neo-colonial. The state, therefore, is fundamentally neutral and is an expression of the interests of the dominant or the ruling class. And the government market-based policies sustain the skewed economic patterns of ownership. The above synopsis of this text will assist us in correctly defining the hierarchical order in this country, in this very genesis of this disquisition. Undeniably, our capitalist economy has obvious features of racism and sexism, which also catalyzes the privation of the Black majority, and in particular, and especially the Black women who remain the constant faces of poverty in South Africa. The structural system, rather, of power which governs the direction of the state is fundamentally white and male. And expressed differently, the ruling class which controls the strategic sectors of the economy is pure white, and this wealth is monopolized by men. White colonial and dispossession and conquest, which were achieved through inter alia warfare, has paved a legacy of socio-economic injustice, which was inherited from the Natives Land Act of 1913 and continues to haunt the Black majority, and again, in particular, the Black women in this country. The interrogation of the unsettling discourses on land in South Africa, as well as the continuous poverty cycle, is fundamental for offering empowering possibilities for Black women. The issue of destitution as a foreground in the discourse of redressing the historical oppression of the native people should be engaged from a historical perspective. In working towards poverty alleviation in South Africa, it is worth noting that poverty is the inability to attain a minimal standard of living which can be measured in terms of basic consumption needs. A reality stipulates that over 60% of South Africans are faced by this. Teenage pregnancy is one of the results of poverty. Through research, we learned that teenagers who are prone to fall into the predicament of falling pregnant at a young age are those from the poorest of poorest backgrounds, which are the Black young women. A report conducted between April 2020 and March 2021 has painted a bleak reality of this, reporting an over 23,000 teenage pregnancy of girls ranging from as little as 10 years old. Patriarchy, of course, has structurally, stereotypically positioned these young women in the light, removing men from the light and center of the problem. And in extension, patriarchy allows men the space to remove themselves from the responsibility of fatherhood. And Black males do not have the broad conceptualization that fatherhood is less about biological creation than about the capacity to nurture. To respond to destitution and poverty, we must have an inclusive economy which goes beyond typical welfare policies, because the policies targeted at the poor reinforces the poor subordination and the same class structure that exists now in society. The thesis is that women are the faces of poverty. Therefore, women are still chained to the yoke of triple oppression, which is class, race, and gender. The antithesis, therefore, is a steadfast intervention in curbing poverty. It is industrialization with a legislation that favors the empowerment of women and the Black youth. The synthesis posts a society that is industrialized in all fronts is that we will have an egalitarian society, which in essence is a classless society. That will also respect the rights of women, that will also empower women as figures that have been excluded in activities of society. I then want to focus briefly on the part of industrialization. And what I mean is that, in particular, is that if we look at emerging economies, particularly from the likes of Asia, they have built their wealth from industrialization, such as Japan. Countries such as France, Germany, United States, and so forth have also built their wealth on industrialization. We must be able to imagine South Africa as a real democracy that is inclusive of women in strategic sectors of the economy. With this, we expect to see women leading banks, women being in charge of the mining sectors, women leading political parties, leading academia, and so forth. Legislation will therefore play a key role in addressing the struggles of women, particularly Black and young women.
Thank you very much, Shakadi. Thank you very much. You have pointed to key and critical things that young women, in particularly, but the youth that can contribute. Regrettably, for expediency of time, I've noted quite a number of critical questions in the chat. My advice would be, we would, as we have shared the study with UNISA, we hope that the study would be available for students to dig into, because it's rich, it's really pregnant with a lot of information that can also assist young researchers to unpack some of the issues that are really critical and coming very clearly in the study. So in that note, I would take back the session to our chair. Over to you, Chair Prof. Magano. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lulama Makubela, Professor Padile Hotla, Dr. Luz Helena Hanna, and Shatadi Poshoko. Indeed, you touched very pertinent issues that address the agenda of women from an early age up to the mature age. And indeed, one question which one panel audience posed on the chat was, how do we foster a mutual working relationship between SAWID and various women-centered organizations with the younger women in leadership space? I think the answer can be maybe put again on the chat due to time as to how do we foster relationships. This is very key and pertinent to all of us. Another question was, how do you address your 20-year-old self? In other words, how do we bridge the gap? And another one comment, it was the issue of handouts and the issue of empowering a person to catch a fish. This is what South Africa should be looking at. What are we doing with our education system? Are we generating a culture of handouts instead of what Dr. Helena said of food security and starting with the families? Without any waste of time, we are going to continue. I'm repeating the announcement that I gave at the beginning. Those who want to listen in Sesotho, in Xitsonga, in isiZulu, you just choose the language of preference so that you hear it better. When you cry, you use your mother tongue. That becomes very clear. I'm going to have the second session being prepared. I think after that session, we will be playing a peace song, and we will be having the fourth session. In this session, we have the moderator, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and amongst the panelists, we have Professor Sheryl Hendricks. We have also Medieketseng Diale and Celeste Diale, the ladies of peace. These legends are going to look at how we as women are looking at the South African National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. I'm going to give you 20 minutes in the interest of time, and each of us be brief. Over to you, moderator, continue.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that wonderful and very generous welcome. And it's such an honor to be here again this year at this UNISA-SAWID-UN Women event in honor of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. And it's particularly exciting for me to be moderating this session that we're going to have this afternoon on embedding the South African National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. The National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security was published in 2020 and covering the period of 2020 to 2025. And this action plan comes out of the Women, Peace and Security agenda of the United Nations that was established in October 2000 with the passing of Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security in the United Nations. South Africa has been a country that has supported and advocated for the Women, Peace and Security agenda over the past 20 years, culminating indeed last year while we were during our third elected term in the UN Security Council in October of 2020, where we sponsored a resolution 2493 to commemorate and to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Resolution 1325. And it's an honor to have today to speak on this Professor Sheryl Hendricks, who has a PhD in Government and International Relations from the University of South Carolina. She's an expert in human security and has considerable experience in conflict analysis, post-conflict reconstruction, and governance, democracy, and development. She facilitated and drafted the strategy on gender-based violence in conflict and post-conflict countries, and a framework for mainstreaming gender into the SADC organ for the SADC Gender Unit, and the SADC organ on peace and security. We also have joining us Ms. Dieketseng Diale and Ms. Celeste Diale from the Ladies of Peace Foundation, who lead the Peace and Security and Humanitarians Action Compact as part of the Generation Equality Forum in South Africa. So Prof. Hendricks, I'm going to hand over to you first to give us your perspective on the National Action Plan.
Thank you, Sitembile. I want to share my screen. Good afternoon, everybody. Really good to be here with you. Happy Women's Month. I'm hoping I can get to sharing the screen, otherwise I will simply speak. As Sitembile indicated, we've been asked to speak about the South African National Action Plan. Many of you are very familiar with the National Action Plan by now. Some of you not. I'm going to go very briefly through this particular National Action Plan. It's the product of many women and some men from different walks of life and organizations over the span of 11 years. But I think that to achieve the successful implementation of this plan that we struggled so long for, over a decade, we require the same kind of cooperation and collaboration from all sectors, government, security, civil society, academia, private sector, and the international community. Just a bit of context here over the last 21 years, which was when the UN Security Council resolution was adopted in the year 2000. We've had many national action plans developed. There are 98 countries now with national action plans. That's 51% of UN member states. 29 of those in Africa, 5 in Southern Africa. And I keep saying 5 in Southern Africa, and it's the same 5. I'm happy that South Africa finally launched the NAP in March 2021. But we need to do much more in order to get the other 11 countries in the region to develop their national action plans as well. Producing the NAP is the first step, implementing it is the actual work, and we're now in that particular phase. Globally, we have done well in producing frameworks, on advocacy and creating networks, but we remain a long way from achieving our overall goals in terms of participation, protection, and prevention. And these can only be reached if all countries do the necessary, and if we document and share our experiences and step in and show solidarity when we must. Because I'm always very taken aback when I watched Libya, when I watched Mozambique, and over the past few days watching Afghanistan, and we seem so helpless to do anything. Recognizing the principle of sovereignty, and I'm sure Sitembile, you'll come back on that. But as civil society and as women, we, I think, need to be far more proactive if we are true to the women, peace, and security agenda. You can't see my PowerPoint at the moment, so there are a few things that I'm simply going to skip. The vision of the National Action Plan is sustainable peace and security and equality for women, girls, and gender non-conforming persons, to create a safer, peaceful South Africa, and world for women, girls, and gender non-conforming persons, enable meaningful participation of women in peace processes, and prioritize their needs and experiences and agency in all conflict and non-conflict contexts. And it's really based on the 4 pillars of UN Security Council 1325. So we have the pillar of participation, of prevention, of protection, of relief and recovery, and 7 priority areas within that. And then we have strategic objectives, 21 of those, each with their particular actions. And I'm not going to read that out. I think everybody should take the time to actually go and look at those objectives. But some of the activities, for example, is to review our foreign policy, to make it gender sensitive. I still feel very strongly that we need a feminist foreign policy and not simply a gender sensitive foreign policy. Update gender mainstreaming strategies, most of them are dated, that we need to develop a gender sensitive conflict management and post-conflict development assistance strategy, that we need to be hosting peace tables, and I'll speak a little bit to that. We need to be deploying more women to the UN and the AU. We need to appoint more women as ambassadors, appoint more women to senior positions in the security cluster, train our community leaders in peace building. It also calls for us to establish a national peace center. And this peace center is really envisaged as a knowledge hub, one that will train, build capacity, coordinate the peace infrastructure, provide the policy advice and implementation support, to develop a youth peace program, to implement measures to eradicate harmful cultural practices, to mainstream peace into the school curriculum, to do the necessary research, to strengthen our mechanisms for the prevention of SIA. I'm really just highlighting a few things here. To protect the LGBTIQ communities, to build and resource provincial relief centers. And one can go on and on, really take the time to read the NAP. Many of these objectives and activities need to be made relevant for the particular sectors through their own planning, programming, and resourcing. If I speak a little bit towards progress and challenges in implementing the NAP was adopted and launched during the pandemic. And I think that this has impacted on its popularization and implementation. But since March 2021, we have produced the communication strategy. We've produced a shorter version of the NAP that is being translated into local languages. We've been speaking to the content of the NAP at different forums. We've been integrating it into the work of the Women, Peace and Security Compact in the Generation Equality Forum. We have the peace pod that Celeste will speak to, and the hosting of the South African Women's Peace Table that took place on the 19th of July. This was a multi-stakeholder peace table organized under the auspices of the Gertrude Shorpe Women Peace Mediators Network, and directly in response to the unrest that gripped South Africa from the 12th of July. It wanted to de-escalate conflict, manage it, and seek to engage in the prevention thereof, to create unity of purpose and social cohesion, to rebuild South Africa's peace infrastructure. There were many press statements, an outcomes document was produced. There was a letter to the president reflecting the outcomes document, an article in the newspaper, media engagement. Those were all follow-ups to the peace table. I think that that was the NAP in action. It showed the relevance of the NAP for our particular country, that you can't just say you're in peace. Peace fluctuates, and therefore the need for that particular peace infrastructure that we've been calling for. Women are at the forefront for peace, and we're not waiting to be invited into peace processes. So we started that particular peace table. Many organizations are on board trying to implement various aspects of the NAP. There is, I think, a need for us to move far faster. Civil society organizations want to move ahead and popularize the document. So we need that shorter version to now be printed. We need a copy of the longer version of the document in each of the government departments at all levels, funding is always a challenge. We need coordination, monitoring and evaluation, and accountability. And therefore the call for the National Policy Forum as that kind of coordinating and accountability mechanisms. One of the good things in South Africa is that we have been promoting women's participation in peace and security for a very long time now. We didn't wait for a nap to do that. And therefore we can show relatively large percentages of women in the security sector and in decision-making structures. We can also show relatively large numbers of women who have been deployed and who are being deployed in peacekeeping missions. However, I think we need to work on increasing the numbers because these have plateaued for the last few years in the 30%. More importantly, the security sector needs to create an enabling environment for the women in these spaces. They still remain filled with toxic masculinity. Moreover, the security sector institutions themselves need to be transformed so that they respond better to the security needs of women. It's not just, as I've always been saying, about getting women into this particular sector. South Africa's levels of violence against women are unacceptably high, even for those women in the particular security sector institutions. The
1 minute left, Prof.
NSP, align in addressing the scourge, and so we need to be working together there. And we're happy to see Ambassador Joini in New York. So by way of conclusion, I think that we need to prioritize the National Forum. We need to be distributing the SNAP to the respective departments, government departments. We need to be developing the peace infrastructure, including peace committees and peace clubs at all levels. We need to develop the toolkits and the guidance notes on peace tables. We need to conduct the baseline studies. We need to ensure that we support young women peace builders, and we need to be advocating for all those frameworks listed in the NAP. Thank you very much.
May I interject? Thank you, Prof. Sheryl. The panel is left with 10 minutes. Exactly 16:40, we are closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much, Prof, and for highlighting in particular all of the importance of peace and peace building. I think we forget that South Africa is a post-conflict society, and very much the violence that we still see and the tensions that we still see as a society is because we are in a continuous process of building peace. And so with that being said, I'd like to turn to, I'm not sure who's going to start, Celeste or Dirk-Etseng to speak about your work with Generation Equality.
Okay, thank you so much, Thembile, and good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I say peace be with you all, and standing on the existing protocols, particularly greeting our great giant, Mama Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. And we are so proud of her work at the Ladies of Peace, especially in trying to implement the very national action plan that Prof is talking about on women, peace and security. And we believe that this can only be a reality when, innovations such as the Generation Equality Forum that Ma'am Mlambo-Ngcuka, spearheaded and managed to raise about 40 million US dollars to try and accelerate the Generation Equality plan. So we are so grateful for that, and we are taking that with pride, and we're saying, as we continue with our work of, empowering children, women and families, it is not enough, Stembile. It is not enough because women are always concerned with coming up with better and innovative and impactful, interventions. What Prof has mentioned in our organization, we promote peace committees or peace clubs, similar to your Stokvels, where we bring the peace agenda to the table, and we say women must have that interaction with both their girl child and the boy child, and have those peace building dialogues and build leaders of today now, to teach our daughters, as young peace builders, to believe in themselves and provide a roadmap to be, everything that they can be, to go out and and help those who cannot have what they have. So with those words, Tembile, I'm now introducing you and ushering Celeste into the topic, because we're trying to replicate exactly that model, a family peace building model that begins to talk to the real issues that Ntate Padilo Hota and the others have mentioned. There is no way that as a country, we can be, our peace index can be so low that, we're not proud of ourselves with the kind of good work that we have done as a country, which now gets watered down by all these ails that we are having, which we believe most of them are, influenced by, our mental status. So we encourage these things. And throughout the pandemic, when it happened, we established what we called a peace corner, which is a family online chat room that, touches right to the grassroots level, for women to air out and voice out their issues, and by way of connecting them with, institutions like the traditional houses in their locality. And the leaders there also become part of the conversation of peace building. And therefore, I would like to thank you, so that I don't eat up on the time that is allocated. Yes, thank you so much, and over. Celeste.
Hello there. Hi, Tembile. And
Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will not eat up any of your time. I am definitely rushing it in. But good afternoon. And thank you so much for allowing this wonderful moment for us to come together and have these conversations. To all the listeners and participants, and to my friends, my peers, and our leaders, mothers, and teachers, all protocol is observed. My name is Celeste, as I've already been mentioned, from the Lady of Peace Community Foundation and the Youth Peace Desk, and the co-creator, along with Larry Cook and Frederick Mabitela, of the Peace podcast, which is alive because of the need to entrench the culture of peace amongst youth, and is supported by the South African Women in Dialogue, the United Nations, and the Department of International Relations, as well as the Lady of Peace Community Foundation. The Peace podcast is pioneering really in the space of implementing Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 of the National Action Plan of Participation and Prevention. The podcast is a mix of a cool panel discussion with live performances, commitment making, pre-recorded interviews, and messaging content, which dives deep into the heart of identified issues respectfully, but without fear, favor, or prejudice. It is a platform that is created to provide content by South Africa, by the South African youth, and for the youth, South African youth, and the world, and to the world. And it raises awareness, provides solutions, and inspires that, and holds accountable the invitees, the people that we invite, and with engagement across all stakeholders. And on the multifaceted topic of peace, we're just only beginning and only scratching the surface of really making it a culture for young people to really talk peace, become peace, and inspire peace across the world. So I don't want to take too much of your time, and I don't know if I'm allowed to play that 3-minute video just to close off, to just give a highlight of the Peace podcast and what we have done so far. And I would also like to echo Mama Phumzile in saying that it is true, intergenerational co-creation really is the currency to further the peace agenda. And it starts in the household, it starts in the home, and it starts with you. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And just if you nod, then I know that I can play that 3-minute video. Wink, wink.
Thank you. I don't think you will be able to play it, because there's another video queued to play as soon as we conclude. But I do think that it's worth
sharing that video online and share it so that it can on this chat, and also so that the link to it, and so it can be shared also on the YouTube broadcast, so that everyone can get a chance to have a look at it and listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we close up, Prof. Hendricks, there's a question here asking about the activities that peace clubs engage in, and whether entrepreneurship would count as a peace action. Could you engage with that? And also this idea of, is peace being taught in one or two subjects like life orientation, or is it something that should be integrated in other parts of the curriculum?
Response in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, very much. I think in terms of peace education, it should be mainstream throughout the curricula and not in just one or two subjects. In terms of the peace clubs, very much so. I think that those peace clubs will define for themselves the kinds of activities that they want to engage in that would bring a sense of human security, development, a sense of choice and growth, etc., to them. It can be very many activities. It's not a very narrow, defined way of peace.
Thank you so much for that response, and thank you everyone for joining us. We've come to the end of this panel discussion on the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. And I think it's been very important for putting peace and conversations about peace back on the agenda, as we saw with the unrest that took place last month. It is so important for us to think about how we live together peacefully in our societies, and it is exciting to hear about all the work that is being done with the peace clubs and the peace corners and all of those conversations that I think are very important for making this part of our culture and not just a policy or a plan that's written on paper. Thank you very much. Handing over to you, Program Director.
Thank you, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Well done. Time-wise, I give you a trophy. Well done. Prof. Sheryl, well done. 4:40 exactly on the dot. Lily. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to request the producer to play that peace song that we really postponed, which is saying Khululeka, peace song from Generation Equality. This will really be a nice thing to be played after such a vigorous engagement on peace, starting from families, and which was connecting with the first. Thank you for the peace song, Kululega. Be free, have that peace. And when you are liberated, indeed, with a peaceful mind, you are able to think better. But when there is no peace, there will automatically be violence all over. And the family structure is the core, is the center where peace is built in our children and us as parents to be peaceful. And society must also be peaceful, from the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, the chronosystem, and the macrosystem. If the ecosystem is full of peace, we will breed generations which are peaceful. No guns will be had in our society. Without any waste of time, I'm going to call Thulasizwe Makhanya from the Charlotte Maxeke Foundation, who is going to give us a glimpse of the beauty of the heart, the legacy and contribution of Charlotte Maxeke, the first Black female graduate. We celebrate her as the first, almost in every endeavor and development of her life. And there will be Zubeida Jeffer, the author of Charlotte Maxeke biography, Beauty of the Heart. You are going to have 15 minutes shared together. Therefore, Thulasizwe, if you can be economic, because Zubeida Jeffer has an airtime. So you become economic as a man, and then you give Zubeida Jeffer more airtime so that you utilize your 15 minutes too. I don't know how you're going to do it mathematically. Over to you.
Greetings, Program Director. Yes, I'll make sure that I only take far less than what we've been given by this platform. Good afternoon, everyone. Program Director, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Director of United Nations Women, the Vice Chancellor of UNISA, Professor Puleng Lenkapula. Thank you to SAWID, Ms. Togo Mbomlwana, and Ms. Gutuko Shongwe of the UN, and then to all the principals of all organizations represented here today as part of this incredible National Women's Dialogue celebration. Igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe, and may the spirit of #Generation Equality reign and grow. We greet you in the name of Mama Charlotte Mahomo Manya Maxeke. This institute, Charlotte Manya Maxeke Institute, is made out of 3 families: the Manyas, the Maxekes, and the Makanyas, all connected to the name. Our objective is to preserve, is to celebrate, is to promote the legacy of Mama Charlotte Manya Maxeke. We also appreciate our government support in our efforts through declaring 2021 as the year of Charlotte Manya Maxeke. This will go a long way in our mission to
You can continue, Zubeida. Unmute.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm sorry Thulas was dropped, because really they should get the kudos for placing or lobbying for this to be the year of Charlotte Manya Maxeke. So the family that was just described now, I think should get all the credit for taking up the cudgels and making sure that for the first time we stop the erasure of Mama Charlotte's story. Thank you very, very much for giving me, even though I have a very short time to speak, and I can speak endlessly on Mum Charlotte. But I just want to say that this afternoon has been a complete delight. What you have organized, all of you together, has been so inspiring and has given me such strength, because during COVID, we are on our own. We are often isolated. We often, have to deal with all the difficult matters, so many people dying around us. And this afternoon has been a reminder that there's lots of us all over the country, and there are lots of us that are continuing to work for peace and to build this country. So thank you very much to all of you. Phumzile, Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka, it's been a thrill because, we were together in the 80s, and I am so incredibly proud of you. I hope you come home soon and you help us shift our direction as forcefully as we can. I had to, when you spoke, I'm not sure if you're still there, Phumzile, but when you spoke, you raised a matter, made a very important point, which I want to illustrate with a little anecdote. You spoke about the law and the norms. Yes, we have all these laws, and we've been very good at changing laws, but we have not always been successful in changing the norms and the behavior. And Mum Charlotte, after she graduated in 1901, she came back to South Africa and couldn't go to her father's village, Ramagopa village in the north, because she was caught in the middle of the Anglo-Boer War. It was a period of nearly 3 years where there was white-on-white violence in our country, and we were all caught up in it. Everybody was caught up in it, and it was a full-scale, conflict. So she couldn't move. She then eventually, when the war ended, she 1902, she made her way north with the express mission of teaching the herd boys in her village, and also starting the education or cementing the education train that she and a group of her contemporaries were very committed to. And I don't know if wherever she must be today, if she's looking down at us, she must be thinking, my God, what did I start? Look at these people, look at these young women. They are so beautiful and so amazing. So she goes, instead of going straight to Ramagopa village, she stops in Lessington, in Queenstown. And she must have become aware that the South African National Convention, the Native Convention, was meeting there. Now, the SA Native Convention was an organization that had started 20 years before the ANC, and they were gathering. She gets there, and there are 40 men gathered, and she's the only woman. And she asks about the convention, what is going to be discussed, and she asks about women's participation. And by taking that action, she challenged the norm of the exclusion of women from political activity. And they, at that political discussion, and they, at that point, they debated, said to her, they will debate it, and they will decide, and they decided to exclude her and to exclude women. And then Saul Plaatje, the great journalist of all times, South African journalist, he then wrote a scathing attack, which I record in my book, Beauty of the Heart, and explains that, that this is an abomination that men could exclude her, and she's our only female graduate. She was the only female graduate at the time. And so what she did, she challenged the norm. She challenged the norm. And in this, I'm thinking of where
Phumzile is today, now she's done us proud. She went ahead and she challenged the norms. And then I think I do still have a few more minutes left, Prof. Magan.
Your time is up.
My time up? And from my account there is, but I will obey your instruction and thank you very much. I would love to
so much.
More, but well done.
Thank you so much, Zubeida, for giving that brief a glimpse of what is in the book. And I like the disruptive narratives that you just gave. She challenged the law. And this is what women we really of substance wanted to and hear men who are gathered Charlotte Maxeke, as this is the year in this of Charlotte Maxeke. I love the words that let me greet the outgoing executive director of UN Women. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Women leaders from all global spaces, young people who have joined this dialogue will have a copy of the book after. We have also the VC and principal Professor Phumzile, as we alluded to that the chairperson of South African Women in Dialogue, I think the founder of SAWID, the Mezanele Mbeki, can you just tell us organizations so across the globe your voice that met this afternoon? A warm, good afternoon.
No, I understand. I was kicked out by technology, but but we work very close with Zubeida. I think she has done a wonderful job around preserving and promoting the legacy of Mae Maxeke. But also, we think that as an institute, this is a good platform also for us to share what we do. But quickly, next week, as part of the influence that we, Mae Maxeke, the call she left behind, we are honoring women through what we call Bring Her Up Women of First Awards, which is also influenced by her famous words when she said, if you can rise, bring someone with you. So we have that award ceremony next week on the 27th. As part of the celebrations, we will honor a number of different women that have also achieved and also changed the world in their spaces. So we are also also happy that we share a platform with the women of high caliber, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who has also done well and followed the full step of Mae Maxeke. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much from the Charlotte Maxeke Foundation. Indeed, we'll have the copy. Without any waste of time, I'm going to call Mae Ntswaki-Mohapi, a SAWID-UN and entrepreneur. And Mae Ntswaki-Mohapi has been with SAWID from 2003 as a young woman and independent, a consultant and entrepreneur. She is going to showcase the books by African and South African women writers. Mae Ntswaki-Mohapi, thank you. Mae Mohapi-Ntswaki, just follow what Zubeida Jaffa and Datte Makhanya have just said regarding the books. A showcase from you, Mae Mohapi. Over to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? It is an honor to be invited to participate in this year's program of our annual dialogue when we celebrate and bid farewell to my dear sister and mentor, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Whilst I first worked with her in 1997 when she was Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, when she started TWIB, I am also fortunate that I was present when we hosted the very first dialogue on the 12th of August 2016 in at UNISA when she was our guest speaker then as well. So when planning this year's dialogue, we thought it imperative to include our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, as we celebrate the legacy of Mam Charlotte Manya Matleke, South Africa's first Black woman to graduate with a university degree in 1901. Mam Charlotte said, "If you can rise, bring someone with you." So for years, I'm one who has enjoyed support and love from many sisters and mothers, and I stand on the shoulders of those who rose and brought me with them. I'm blessed that among those, I stand on the shoulders of Sis Phumzile, Mam Zanele Mbeki, Mam Thoko Mpumlwana, Mam Brigalia Bam, Sis Anne, Sis Martha. And I'm also proud that I carry my late mother's baton of love and ability to nurture others. And as such, I have many daughters and nieces, and some of whom I'm privileged and honored to present here today.
Can you just switch on your video?
I thought I had.
No.
I think Joey needs to let me in.
Switch your video on and also increase the volume from your side.
Yes. My camera is on. My video is on. Yes, the camera is on now. It's lighting. Can you see me? No, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, you can continue, Memo Happy, in the interest of time. But are you having a presentation for us to see the books?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, can you share your screen?
Yes, I will.
Yes, we will have only 5 minutes to conclude.
Okay, so in keeping with Mam Charlotte's mantra of bringing someone with you and in alignment with the African Union's Agenda 2063, we're proud to showcase several women's authors, African and South African women authors, in today's dialogue, and their literature covers a broad range of topics, and more importantly, these women authors represent a broad age demographic, from the age of 12 right up to senior citizens who are grandmothers and retired citizens. So our VC mentioned that she was excited about Zuleika Patel participating, but unfortunately we did not receive her documents on time. So we as UNISA, SAWID, and UN Women made a deliberate decision, as we always do, to make sure that no woman is left behind. And as part of our part in contributing towards the AU's Agenda 2063 goals, for those who may not be familiar what those goals entail, at high level, basically what it is, it's a people-driven initiative that builds on previous experiences of a shared framework of inclusive growth and sustainable development. It is a continuation of the Pan-African drive for progress and collective prosperity. Some of the aspirations of Agenda 2063 goals include well-educated citizens, engaged and empowered youth and children, as well as achieving full gender equality in all spheres of life. In closing, this presentation that I'm about to do, the slideshow that I'm about to show, is by no means the be-all and end-all when the dialogue ends today. The writers that are showcased here today, their works and their books that I'm going to highlight are going to be presented in a virtual store, and this virtual store has been set up already, and everybody will be able to access them beyond the borders of South Africa. And so if you are ready, can you see my screen? I'm going to share my screen now.
Yes, visible.
Okay. So our first author that we're going to talk about is none other than Michelle Gamman, 12-year-old young lady who developed the interest in writing at the age of 6. She has several books and she has won several awards, including Girl of Promise, UNICEF's 2016 Writers on Tiny Stories for Children, and she's also been the image of Child of Hope statue. She was a guest speaker also in 2018 at the Charlotte Manya Matleke Institute event, and her first 2 books have actually been endorsed by the Department of Education and are being used at a number of schools. Our second author is Dr. Susan Datte. She hails from the Eastern Cape, and she has written a book titled Ain't Over Till It's Over. She's a senior lecturer teaching first-year students communication skills at the University of Western Cape. She's passionate about poverty alleviation, and the message of her book is of hope, which is directed at Black learners to say that they must never give up, as it will never be over till God says so. This young lady, Miss Naledi Mashishi, is one of my many daughters, and she has written this book. We used to, at nursery school, they used to call her My Lady. They could not, the white kids could not pronounce Naledi for whatever reason, and I could never correct my nephew to say it's Naledi, not My Lady. But anyway, Naledi is a researcher based in Johannesburg. She holds degrees in journalism from Rhodes and Wits. In 2019, she won the first edition of the Casalode Writers Residency that was hosted by Blackbird Books and Eunice Ngogodo Own Voices. Her book, Invisible Strings, is her first novel, and it's a story about the past bleeding into the present, the living and the dead, and the use of religion to mask sinister intentions.
Can you briefly give us the title and then move to the next slide, as you are left with 2 minutes only?
Yes. The next title is Coconut Curls by another daughter of mine, Lesego Tlabi. You might have seen her on TV. She's one who's very determined. She's qualified from Brunel University in London and has diplomas from New York Film Academy and Columbia University as well. She was got an award as by Global Citizens as being one of 11 change-making Africans in 2011. The last, but the next one is Nokuthula, Dr. Nokuthula Mazibukwe, a sister, and Nokuthula is a writer, producer, broadcaster, and academic. She's published 6 books for young readers, and the one that we hear showcasing today is a book titled Kawe, which is a book about our well-known middle distance runner, Caster Semenya. And her works are about self-love, positive cultural values, celebrating those, and courage and resilience. Last but not least is a collection of books of African women authors, which was edited by Ambassador Nosipo January Badil. This is a book about inclusions, about influence, about impact. Its mission is to inspire the next generation of African women leaders. It's a movement, it's a call for African women to speak up and write about their past, the present, so they can write their future. Write as in correct their future. It's a collection of stories that is told by women from 23 African countries about their own individual experiences. The books that we've mentioned here and showcased here are going to be listed on the virtual stall that is called Abaxoxi, and this is the URL for Abaxoxi virtual stall. Now, if you look up Abaxoxi, it will say on Google, they don't speak, but actually, depending on how you pronounce it, it's meant for speakers. It's a speakers, writers platform. So with this, I'd like to say thank you very much and congratulations, ladies, and we wish you well. Thank you, Program Director.
Well done, Memo Happy. This is excellent. you really demonstrated the gift that we have as young and also up to elderly women. We really appreciate the work that you did by taking all those books and coming to showcase them here. Thank you so much. And the messages carried by all those books, I think those who occur in the academic space, we are having a job to demonstrate how Black excellence is out there. Thank you so much, Memo Happy. Over to the next speaker now. It's going to be a very touching topic. It is saying intersectional inclusion. Exclusion cannot continue to be the norm. What a challenging topic. I am going to give Tobeka Luana, an inclusion advocate, to come and address us. I'm going to give you 7 minutes in the interest of time, and just give us those powerful slots of exclusion cannot continue to be the norm. Over to you, Tobeka.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And firstly, thank you so much for having me address this inspirational platform. Thank you to SAWID, to Toko Mbumlwana, UN Women's End, Gitsuku Shongwe, UNISA, led by Prof. Miabo Mahamo, and every organization that is represented today, moving the feminist agenda forward. Exclusion cannot continue to be a norm, and that is true. And what do we mean about exclusion? And for me, I'd like to talk about how we bring all of our whole self, our holistic identity to the table and to the world without being apologetic. This is an important question because we often have to let some parts of our identities to die or be silent, and present those parts of ourselves that are convenient or provide agency. In my view, at the heart of intersectional inclusion, there's a need to choose one category over another in dealing with people's identities and their roles in society. There's no hierarchy, I believe. Race is not at the top of the pile. My identity as an individual is an accumulation of many different facets. Time and resources need to be allocated towards accepting or engaging people with varying age, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic, cultural orientation, religion, class, disability versus fully abled, physical appearance, geographical location, the list is endless. All of these factors that add up in terms of who we are need to be considered. Diversity is important, I believe, but it's no longer enough. We no longer just need representation of diverse groups of people, but we need equitable access and participation, whether in business or society. So intersectionality then says, don't identify people with just broad strokes of race, of gender, religion, and language, but consider other nuanced points of differentiation that may leave others discriminated against. To move beyond diversity towards intersectional inclusion, we must meet people where they are and exactly as who they are. So we appreciate their identity, what that identity means, its hopes, its fears, and also understand how we partner with them. For example, sometimes in certain environments, I present myself as an entrepreneur before I present myself as a woman, a Black woman, a differently abled woman at that. And sometimes I'm just simply a Black woman in her 40s that is dealing with cultural biases in my home village in Dabangulu, Eastern Cape, before I present myself as a dynamic woman that is living in the northern suburbs of Johannesburg that loves fashion, that loves art, that loves music, that loves soccer. But all of these characteristics are the sums of my entire being. So you can't just classify me as one broad group, because if you do, you will still leave me excluded. So that's where the identities overlap and intersect. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the intersectionality of inclusion. And in addressing intersection and exclusion, there's a question that says, who has the responsibility to solve for this? And I believe that everyone must address exclusion of others in society as much as they can. But the greater responsibility surely lies with leadership. It lies with those that have privilege of power, that have privilege of agency and access in most cases. The privilege are usually in the majority, except in South Africa. So in South Africa, it's very reversed. The minority are usually the ones that are privileged. But in any case, those with privilege or have keys to access do not only have the responsibility to bring in others, but they must also look at those invisible discriminatory elements that are built into society, into business, into corporates, such as algorithms, technology, language, culture, processes, and systems that may limit equal access or participation. The structural barriers in most instances are nuanced and invisible. You can't see prohibitive culture, but it's there. You can't see or touch discriminatory systems and processes in the workplace, but trust me, they're there. So it's very key to tackle these invisible biases, make them visible, and then re-engineer them. I'm sure you've heard people say, but I'm not racist. Our organization is not racist. Our policies are in black and white, and they are fair. You've heard this, right? But I say, what about those invisible biases that are embedded in corporate culture and systems? So solutions lie in making the invisible discriminatory elements like biases and culture visible. Once they are visible, we can then test them, amend, and dismantle or reconstruct. Those that are privileged or in leadership position should lose their sense of self or ego in this process. It is a brave work to speak and act against exclusion. Trust me, it's a thankless work. No one's going to thank you for it, but it has to be done. And in doing this kind of work, mistakes will be made, faux pas will happen. But when they do happen, we apologize, take lessons, and we continue with the work. The onus of eliminating bias, in my view, and discrimination is on the privileged, the elite, or the leadership. The excluded, disenfranchised, cannot be the ones driving inclusion when they're already on the outside and not even part of the conversation. This requires bold and courageous leadership. It is not a once-a-year initiative, like, when we have conversations like these in August or Women's Day. It's an everyday work, everyday exercise, a continuous work of education, advocacy, and allyship. I applaud the work of UN Women in what they're doing, especially in challenging the creative and the design industries, such as fashion, art and advertising, and film, to ensure that they project inclusive imagery that is inclusive of and free of bias. We are seeing progress in some of these areas. As an example, I'm working with Nestlé South Africa. They're currently running a revamped ad campaign for Cremora, which is inclusive, with inclusive protagonists. For example, they have representation from LGBTQIA, they have representation from the disabled community. They also have a protagonist that has albinism. All these are represented in this campaign. And in my view, this is a big move in the advertising industry to drive an inclusive agenda, to really say all the different faces we have in our communities deserve a space in the media landscape. We need to see ourselves as exactly as we are, even in the media platforms and films. We need to see people that look like us. In fashion ranks, we need to see people like us. So partnering with culture and the media is critical in dismantling these biases. In closing, we don't have to make these changes because it's a nice thing to do, or it's something we can do at our spare time. It is the right thing to do. It is everyone's basic right to fully participate in every part of society, and it is time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tobeka. I have a question on the chat, which is saying, how do you bring this inclusivity into the curriculum? You have 1 minute of inclusive education. Where can we start in the curriculum?
That's a very good question. And to be honest, I will say it is nothing I have considered fully. I'm fairly new in my journey with this conversation, but I believe partnership with the Department of Education through the ministry that I work closely with, the Ministry of Women, People with Disabilities and the Youth, to gain access and see how we can make it practical and useful, and also with urgency. It's something very simple, but it doesn't have to take years and years in order for it to be, incorporated. But I think my other colleagues from the UN Women who've done a lot of work in this space, as well as representatives from the Department of Women may have better insights, but I really think it's partnership between those two departments to really make it go as far as wide as possible in the Department of Education.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Thobeka. We would love to see your book in the near future. Just touch Menzwakimo happy, and then you also contribute. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Thobeka. I really appreciate your inputs. They are very sound. Thank you so much. We are now going to have a wrap-up session, which will be also, we are left with 9 minutes, but I know that Prof. Lou is very strict and Dr. Sheila Kumalo, they are very strict. Prof. Lulama Kumalo, the chair of SAWID Development Commission, and Dr. Sheila Kumalo, former chairperson of UNISA Women's Forum. She's the one who gave me the baton to run with. Over to you as you wrap up. We have, between the two of you, I know you can be very economical. If you can take 2.5 minutes and 2.5 minutes, I'm going to give you chocolate. Over to you.
Unmute, Sheila.
Unmute, Dr. Kumalo, unmute.
Thank you. I'm too excited. I even forgot things to be done. Yeah, thank you, Program Director, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, our Principal and Vice Chancellor at UNISA, Prof. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, SAWID and UN Women Leadership, the UNISA Women's Forum Executive, distinguished guests, and all protocol observed. In celebrating May, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka.
So guys,
okay. Someone's audio is unmuted. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. In celebrating May Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, the outgoing UN Women Executive Director, and in the same year as we commemorate May Charlotte Maxeke, today's theme is no coincidence. As it reflects towards peace and gender equality, collective legacies and co-creative solutions, as we have indicated throughout the discussions. It's no debate that this unassuming quiet power has influenced the institution in a big way. They didn't see it coming. We are a proud society indeed. Her agenda has been consistent and resolute in promoting women's agenda. We have seen and felt from afar, over the oceans, in the United Nations, your unwavering efforts to disrupt the status quo, propel and insist on transformation, as well as advancing and dealing with stereotypes in diverse stages. Although you candidly say those global engagements were exhausting, believe me, you always looked better than any Hollywood star. You remain a true, inspiring African queen. The women
continue with the work.
Seriously grateful and inspired by your leadership, especially leadership resilience, in considering the generation equality as a platform to pull together all the players so that you can achieve a bigger agenda. We're truly grateful and appreciate that. We are looking forward to expanding the work we have started, even better now that you will be here on our shores to hold us by a hand as we co-create ideas and achieving more. I totally agree in saying Generation Equality Masterclass, here we come. I'm also aware you have never lost touch. Frankly, there is still a lot of work to be done collaboratively by men, women, and youth in order to achieve the society that we all aspire. It is exactly a year today, this very platform when UNISA-SAWID-UN Women hosted the very same dialogue. And at that event, my parting shot was, like Deborah, let us all go work and reconvene to take stock in 12 months. And that 12 months is here today. And to take stock and pathing the way forward is my sister, another unbreakable Mbogo, Dr. Prof. Mama, who will bring all the discussions into a focal point of dialogue and into a doable milestones from the deliberations from this afternoon sessions. Prof. Lu, over to you.
Thank you very much, fellow Mbokoto and the one and only Dr. Khumalo. To echo Ms. Zubeida Jaffa, that really summarized today that this afternoon has been a complete delight. I cannot agree more with you. It has been a feast of ideas. It has been such a wonderful shift from normally the lamenting spaces that sometimes, you know, women are known to be, but it is more of saying, here we are alive, we are here today. And looking at the program and how it unfolded right from the beginning, when our Mbongi, Bishop Jessica, calling the African spirit to be with us, you could feel the beat, the African drum beating in our hearts, to really pay real congratulations of our sister, our friend, a fellow Mbokoto who has done us so proud in Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. However, I want to quickly go back from where Prof started, Prof Mlambo-Ngcuka. She made something without realizing that it would manifest today. She identified and made us aware that there is nothing greater than the importance of writing our stories. If you listened carefully, right from the beginning, the script has been written for us by our elder sisters, moving on to where our young lions, such as Memo Happy with the Abattoir stall, to say, here we are, we understand, and make it really clear and remind us of what Sylvia Tamale even said about that African feminists are keenly aware of knowledge productions, political economy, because that's what it is. She postulates that what we read in mainstream literature, for example, whether it's history, whether it's law, whether it's science, whether it's religion or culture, it primarily reflects the world's Eurocentric view. So such biases of knowledge, as you know, they exist despite claims of objective value research and the knowledge that is produced. So the ghettoization of gender, and in particular in our academic circles, is emblematic of how hegemonic knowledge is produced, for whom and with what funding. So therefore, it is part of our responsibility, fellow Mbokotos, to ensure that as we preach decolonization and our decoloniality project in our spaces, we seek to ensure that we center African people in the academic spaces in considering the critical differentiation based on gender and other intersecting parameters. So therefore, this has been such a delight to close off our program and thank everyone that has really contributed in such a beautiful, beautiful feast that we saw unfolding. So to SAWID and to the UNISA Women Forum, I cannot, add more to what Dr. Khumalo has said, that we have given such stature to the two significant milestones, celebration of the 2021, the year of our very own Sheryl Matlake, but also the closing of the chapter and a very good job done by our Mbokoto, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. So therefore, the legacies that both Mbokotos have left on us, it's very critical that we take the baton running, and particularly the young women and particular men that are here, and to the men in particular, whether young or old, that are in our space or listening out there, please, this is our appeal as women in this country. Give peace a chance. Please just give peace a chance. And it couldn't have been really summarized in that section that Prof. Hendricks and Dr. Datte really summarized it in such a beautiful and profound peace video at the end. So from us, back to you, Program General Prof. Magano. We really appreciate the way in which you really helped all of us to navigate the space, even amidst the challenge of time. But we hope and trust that everyone is really happy and excited about what happened today. I thank you
so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Sheila Khumalo. Thank you so much, Prof. Lulama. Your wrap-up is so profound. I don't want to spoil it. I know that Dr. Griselda Kananda is here, ready to come and give vote of thanks. A radio and TV personality, published author, inspirational speaker, and civil rights activist who just overcame, a resilient woman. Over to you, Dr. Griselda Kananda. You are becoming younger day by day. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those very kind words of introduction. Mine is simply just standing between hungry stomachs and aching bodies and bones, and a conclusion of what an incredible session. I am hoping that we'll find a chance to just open our videos and ululate and clap our hands in gratitude of this moment. Thank you very much for that. Now, mine is simply to just thank everyone who did such a sterling job in having this wonderful gathering. We thank our founders of SAWID, especially our patron, Mamzanele Mbeki, the women who went before us, including Mama Charlotte Matleke, to the Charlotte Matleke Foundation, and Zubeida Jafta for documenting the life and legacy of Mama Matleke. Chairperson Mam Mpumlwane, who tear-jerked us with such a proud leadership and Mom's speech, as she was acknowledging with pride a diligent Sawidian that we sent with pride to the world. To the trustees and Sawidians on this platform, Gender Links Women's Voice and Leadership Program supported by Canadian government and UNISA, the University of South Africa, led by an incredible first ever Vice Chancellor, Prof. Linkabula, who welcomed us with such prowess. UN Women and the Generation Equality Forum, all, as well as SALGA, for supporting the women of South Africa in their quest for becoming the agents of their own development. We thank our program director, and I'm hoping that I'll also get an offer for chocolate. I'm reading as quick as I possibly can. We thank you for such expert program directing skills. We thank Sis Angie Tungu-Shongwe, our unapologetic women agenda champion, for ably moderating the first session. Thank you very much for that. We thank our sign language interpreters, our indigenous language interpreters. I wanted to see you sign, my sister, and see how you sign in thanking yourself. And the women offering multi-faith devotions, and all the many speakers at different sessions that we had today, women and the young women who joined us, and the more matured ones like me. Believe it or not, I belong in that group now. Fifth floor is no child's play. And as well as our Prof. Padile Hosha, honorary woman, we know we can always count on you. And we thank our colleagues at Womanomics. This is such a technical word. Under Lebubiko, thank you. I echo Prof. Lulama's sentiment that you are indeed phenomenal. You and the team work tirelessly to manage the logistics of this virtual platform. Again, we thank all the speakers, presenters, moderators, and all participants for making this such a beautiful, powerful discussion where we forge towards peace and gender equality, and as a collective legacies and co-creative solutions of African women. And lastly, before you think maybe I left her out, definitely not. Lastly, we thank Usingaye, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, for spending your first day after concluding your work at the UN Women, and you chose to spend this with us, Sawidians. And we acknowledge and celebrate 8 years of progress. When you look at what you have achieved, it's only a wonder what more we can achieve working together. As we reflect on all that you have achieved, we can confidently say that we are the ones we've been waiting for. Mdinega, Sishange, Maphisa, Ubuza, Ndlanzi, Mlambo Mkhulu, Ongawelwa Muntu, Chibi. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we end our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Griselda Kananda. You always, amaze me how you can keep time. Your chocolate is on the way. Virtually, there you are with your chocolate. As we conclude, ladies and gentlemen, if he's still here, we are going to have our multi-faith devotion as we started our African traditional Lorato Skepenhazen, followed by Brahma Kumaris, Sister Pratibha Daya, in that order. And then thereafter we will be having a music. But Dr. Griselda requested us to ululate. Shall we ululate before prayer? Because prayer is prayer. Shall we just for a minute, May Uslebu and Joey, allow us to ululate the African way, to say to Me Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Samaya Pila, Etla Haye Pila. This is who we are. In a moment of prayer, Melerato Skepenhazen, followed by Sister Pratibha Daya, in that order. Over to you, Melerato.
Good afternoon, everybody. all protocol observed. You know, when I got invited to come and perform this ceremony and also to celebrate our own Usis Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, I was so humbled. Thank you all for giving me permission to do this. I am now going to start with the ceremony. Siyathokozani makhetla madala. Riyathokoza. Bokokole bontate mogolo. Ke thokoza go ba ka badimo ba ba ntumeletseng go etsa mosebetsi. Ke a thokoza ke a leboga bontate mogolo. Ba go latelana ga lona ga ke kgetse lebala la motho. Ke thokoza go badimo ba South Africa. Ke thokoza go badimo ba Africa. Ke thokoza go ntate Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Ke thokoza le go yana mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Ke thokoza go ntate Sisulu. Ke thokoza le go yana mme Adelaide Sisulu. Re a thokoza bontate mogolo. Re thokoza go bona badimo ba bothambo. Re thokoza go bona bo Albertina bontate mogolo. Ga re kgetse lebala la motho batsadi ba ka ba rategang. Re thokoza go badimo bo botlhe ba ba re sile ba ba robetseng ba naga e ya South Africa. Le utlwile batsadi. Le utlwile batsadi. Le utlwile batsadi ba ka. Re a leboga. Re a leboga.
We're thankful our ancestors. We're thankful ancestors. All the talk, all the discussions in this congregation. We are asking, please hear our prayers as our children. You have heard there's COVID here. The nation is dying. You heard about our children, our women in our household, our parents. We are asking for wisdom. We ask for peace. We ask your light, your support, so that from here, from these conversations, we must be able to lead our African nation as women. We put all this in your hands. We thank you, our ancestors, all of you. We thank you, our ancestors, for today's day.
This ceremony will not be complete if we also do not connect to the universal intelligence, master of all, and ask for blessings that all the intentions that were set on this forum today must manifest. So I gently and politely ask everybody to please close your eyes. And let us take a few deep breaths and breathe into our hearts as we connect to the universal intelligence, as we connect to grace, as we connect to God and receive this blessing. let us now all set this heartfelt intention that everything that we asked for manifests. Let us receive this blessing from our divine, the universal intelligence, from God. I thank you. You may gently open your eyes. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So it's an absolute honor to be with you this afternoon and to share a few moments of devotion. It has been such a rich afternoon and a real celebration of the power, the diversity, the beauty, and the specialities of women, and especially as we acknowledge and celebrate the achievements of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. I would like to just share a few words really on this, the special power and the special quality that we have as women. And today's, a whole afternoon has been a reflection of this innate power that we have. Right now, where we are in the world, we are all challenged to hold a higher and broader vision, to act with strength, love, and courage, to trust the invisible spiritual fabric which ultimately defines our life. In a growing climate of instability, it calls for an emergence of a power that is beyond gender, position, race, or economic privilege. It is an innate spiritual strength which is referred to as Shakti. The word Shakti is translated as power or life force, and it is derived from the root verb shak, which means to be able to do, to act. And Shakti is a sacred feminine power originating from divinity and translated into practical implementation. So it's like a spark that is in our hearts, and how we bring that spark into action. And we can see its manifestation as how it influences and nurtures and sustains. So connecting with our Shakti helps to emerge love as a power, which is needed now to influence the way we see, the motivation for our actions, and in doing so, increase the ability to lead from a place of compassionate strength, both in personal and public spaces. Love is a unifying force which holds the capacity to heal, gives birth to new beginnings, and nurtures life. So if we are to affect change, we have to define ourselves for who we are rather than how we've allowed ourselves to be defined by external factors. And I think this aspect of personal identity was highlighted very powerfully this afternoon, that our definition of ourselves informs our capacity for the quality of actions we take. Therefore, this connection with our inner being becomes the anchor that offers internal security and stability so that we can retain the clarity of thought, vision, and intention, irrespective of the shifting sense of the external climate. We are called on to renew our identity beyond limited beliefs, beyond external influences, and to acknowledge the unseen parts of ourselves, the living consciousness, which is the seed of our potential. Transformative change can only be realized when we reconnect with that invisible spiritual DNA within, like the caterpillar who relinquishes the outer form and reconnects with the unseen gene of being a butterfly. So the power of Shakti is deeply embedded in her connection with the highest source. It is this sacred connection which fuels her world, her capacity to be a conduit of love, and her courage in actions. Actions stemming from the state of consciousness are naturally life-affirming and benevolent. And so with these few words of just recognizing that what we've celebrated today is really the Shakti in each of us, that innate spark that when it's connected with the divinity and when we reconnect with that identity of who we really are, then the impossible becomes possible. So I invite all of you now, just for a few moments, to just take a deep breath within and just center yourself and turn inwards to the very core of your being, recognizing that beyond the external forms, there is a consciousness that I am within. There is a power that I am within. That I am a power that is of divine in nature. That this is the true essence of my being. And this divine power within sits on the foundation of peace. So feel the peace in the heart of your being, recognizing that this peace is a power, a transformative power. Recognizing that this peace is a power that brings stability. Recognizing that this peace is a power that nurtures. Recognizing that this peace is your authentic self and naturally connects you with that higher source, the divine intelligence, God. And just feel yourself being held in this pure connection of infinite love, which is the language of the universe. And as we align ourselves with this vibration of love, we connect with that higher source, but we connect with the true essence of each other. And it's the power of this collective connectedness, of the sacred connectedness, that heals, that nurtures, and that transforms. So hold the stillness, hold this connectedness, and be the love that you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha Daya, for the prayer. And thank you, Mam Lerato, for the prayers. We are really happy that we started with prayer and we are closing with prayer. There's a request that all of us should switch on their videos. And as we switch on our videos, the song that we were supposed to be playing was the Michael Jackson one, You Rock My World. But now we don't have copyrights, and also Tumamina by Hugh Masekela. We also don't have copyrights. So from our own African ululation, we are echoing these songs by Michael Jackson and Tumamina of Hugh Masekela. We are requested just to ululate the African way, all of us, in closing this session. As we go back to our communities, let us go work, and an action should be there. The generation equality, its motto, when I read it, it is simply to say, let there be action. And let us not promise communities, but not do anything. So as women of SAWID, as women of UNISA, as women of SALGA, as women in all organizations that are promoting the agenda of women, that we are fighting poverty, we are fighting exclusion, let us go out and do something in our communities and make sure that the generation equality agenda continues. The footprint that Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka left, we cannot just make sure, eradicate it, but we must ensure that forward we go. And there must be action in every community. Down as a woman, refuse to be put down as a human being in this planet Earth. When I read from my Bible, it says the earth is the Lord and everything that is in it. Therefore, no one can exclude me. No one can undermine who I am as a woman. Shall we ululate, all of us, men and women who are here? Thank you, goodbye. Thank you all.
Yes, bye.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The
Thanks,
chocolates
Sister
are coming virtually. The chocolates are coming.
Thank you, Sister Ko. Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you, Juveda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Lama.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Martha, are you still alive?
I am. She wrote all the names and forgot to thank herself. Such a selfless human being.
Sure.
The spirit of SAWID. As the spirit of SAWID, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was so touching. It was touching.
Beautiful. It was beautiful.
You, dear Ketseng, young as you are, wow. Dr. Luz Helen, I think that model should be duplicated in all communities.
Please God, yeah, I hope so.
The culture of reading, of books. When we were still students, we were going to the library at grade 3. Every student was supposed to read a book in 2 weeks and return it to the library from grade 3. So I think those things, if we really bring them back to our schools, to our communities, the libraries at the corner of the street, you know, those things are really empowering. So we should really go back to the peace in society. We need it. The family structure, the ecosystem. If the ecosystem, one layer is disrupted, it has a ripple effect. Everything is disrupted in the community. So we really need to